Chapter 1135. The door was half closed, blocking everyone's curious eyes. Many people had wanted to eavesdrop, but the two rough old maids standing at the door were obviously not to be trifled with. The idlers all left and pointed at the door, focusing on whether what the madam said was true or not. Could it be that the couple really plotted to seize the wife's property? If that was really the case, then this couple was really vicious to be able to do such a thing. Many people did not leave. Although they could not see the scene, they could at least hear the sound. There must be a plan to solve this matter in the end, but it depended on who was in the wrong. In the accounting room, the screen was pulled open by two strong old maids, and they saw Xiao Wanru sitting in the wide chair behind the screen. Wei Dahai's eyes involuntarily twitched and he subconsciously took a step back. He recognized Xiao Wanru. Ouyang looked at Xiao Wanru and did not recognize her for a moment. At this time, it was inconvenient to ask Wei Dahai, so she just looked Xiao Wanru up and down. At the sight of Xiao Wanru's momentum, she knew that she was not an ordinary girl. She looked elegant and noble. What puzzled Ouyang at the moment was that she looked young but dressed like a married woman. She was not a miss from an aristocratic family. With a trace of panic in her eyes, she thought of who she was. Princess Chen, who had just married into Prince Chen's mansion, seemed to be young. It was said that she had not reached marriageable age. Lord Wei and Madam Wei, it seems that you know who I am, right? Xiao Wanru looked at the couple calmly and said lightly, I heard clearly what Lord Wei said to Nanny Dong in the room just now. I heard that Nanny Wei framed me for Lord Wei's sake. Now Butterfly Clothing Shop has been sued. As a fourth-level official, Lord Wei has great power. Wei Dahai's face changed dramatically. Lord Wei seems to know me. Xiao Wanru asked. After being stunned for a moment, Wei Dahai hurriedly said carefully, I've seen you in Marquis Xing's mansion. Marquis Xing's mansion? I thought it was when I came to Butterfly Clothing Shop before. Lord Wei seemed to want Butterfly Clothing Shop very much. Xiao Wanru smiled and said leisurely. This is Madam Ming's. I want to be with Madam Ming. If you put the shop under my name, Madam Ming and the child can come back. Wei Dahai murmured and restrained the panic in his heart. He never thought that Princess Chen would really find him and hide inside to eavesdrop on their conversation. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart. At this time, Wei Dahai still wanted to deceive her with such words. Your Excellency Wei, let's not talk about who is right and who is wrong between you and Madame Dong. As for this shop, don't even think about it. This shop was originally mine. Now it's under my name again. Do you have any objection? Xiao Wanru asked. What? Wei Dahai widened his eyes in shock and looked at Xiao Wanru in disbelief. Lady Ouyang also raised her head in astonishment. She looked at Nanny Dong and then at Xiao Wanru. They had planned for so long and regarded the shop as theirs. Now they actually said that the shop did not belong to Nanny Dong. Then what was their previous plan? Not only did they waste their efforts, but they also became a joke. Madame Ouyang calmed down a little and said, Princess Chen, I know that you have a noble identity, but you can't rob a good person's property. Rob? Madam Wei, I'm afraid you've made a mistake. I was still young at that time, so it was inconvenient for me to show up, so I asked Nanny Dong to do it. Nanny Dong came to the capital city with me. Because I had no extra money, I specially went to the bank to mortgage a loan, so that I had liquid capital. At that time, the person who helped me mortgage was also a person of the Ministry of Justice. The formalities were complete, and the bank also had a record. Xiao Wanru said with a smile, reached out to take the tea from Yujie, and took a sip slowly. What she wanted to do now was to interrupt Wei Dahai's delusion. The princess of the Su Kingdom entered the capital city and made the situation in the capital city chaotic. At this time, Prince Chen's mansion should keep a low profile. In the past, she didn't mind keeping Wei Dahai in suspense, but now she couldn't. She had to cut the Gordian knot so that Wei Dahai would not dare to think about Butterfly Clothing Shop again, so that she wouldn't be distracted. After knocking on the door gently, Yujie hurriedly went forward and opened the door. When Shichi appeared at the door with a gentle smile on his face, Wei Dahai involuntarily stepped back. He knew when Shichi. Your Excellency, thank you. Xiao Wanru stood up and bowed politely. It doesn't matter. It's my duty. When Shichi cupped his hands to Xiao Wanru. After greeting each other, the two of them took their seats respectively. Yujie served the tea and stepped back behind Xiao Wanru. As for Wei Dahai and his wife, they still stood like this. No one invited them to sit down, let alone serve them tea. Your Excellency, when I took the mortgage, you were the guarantor. Now I wonder if you can be a witness to prove that this shop used to be my shop, but I was young at that time, so I specially entrusted it to Nanny Dong to manage, right? Xiao Wanru asked. Yes, the contract at that time still exists. When Shichi nodded, took out a few pieces of contract paper from his sleeve, put them on the table, and said in a businesslike manner, Please have a look, Princess Chen. Are these the right ones? Xiao Wanru motioned for Yujie to take them. After taking them and looking at them, she said in surprise, Thank you, Your Excellency. I didn't expect that I would get such great help from you when I just met you once. Now I have to trouble you to be a witness for me. When Shichi was really thorough. As soon as she said so, he immediately got the evidence. It happened 3 years ago, and it was related to when Shichi's ability that he could get it so smoothly. Princess, you're too polite. It's just a piece of cake. When Shichi turned to Wei Dahai and said, Your Excellency, this shop was bought by Princess Chen at that time. Coincidentally, it used to be my friend's shop. I happened to be there that day. Seeing that Princess Chen, such a young girl, had such a great ambition, I specially helped her and got this shop. Since Your Excellency Wei has taken a fancy to this shop and is determined to seize it, in my opinion, let's go to court. Go to court? Wei Dahai's face was ashen, and his hands trembled in his sleeves. How could he go to court in this situation? Who was Wen Shichi? With him as a witness and these contracts, he could not only lose the case, but also had no future in the future. He had concluded that Princess Chen did not dare to make a big deal of the matter because he thought that Princess Chen just took a fancy to the people of Butterfly Clothing Shop. It turned out that Butterfly Clothing Shop belonged to Princess Chen. How could he seize it? There was also Wen Shichi as a witness. Not to mention that when Shichi was the third son of the Prime Minister and had an excellent reputation, he was now serving in the Ministry of Justice. His position was similar to his, but he had real power. How could he, an insignificant fourth-grade official, snatch Princess Chen's shop from her hands? His legs felt weak, and he reached out to hold the corner of the table to steady himself. Your Excellency, there's no need. This is really a misunderstanding. Wei Dahai's smile was uglier than crying. At this time, he dared not think of anything but just wanted to go back and not have any ideas about Butterfly Clothing Shop. If he had known that this shop did not belong to Dong Ming's mother, he would not have dared to think about it. Misunderstanding? At this point, how could it be a misunderstanding? Your Excellency, you'd better come with me. I heard that the case of Butterfly Clothing Shop was also related to you. I'd like to find out who in our Ministry of Justice secretly colluded with you to do such a thing. When Shichi's face turned cold and he snorted. Are you going to follow the clues? Wei Dahai felt very guilty. Although he felt that he would not leave any clues, he was afraid. If they really found out that he was involved, it would not be a matter that could be cleared up by saying it was a misunderstanding. Your Excellency, this is really a misunderstanding. Wei Dahai reached out to wipe his cold sweat and cupped one hand in the other before his chest to Wen Shichi in a humble manner. If this matter was made public, he would definitely be in serious trouble. Your Excellency, this is really a misunderstanding. I thought it was our master who really. Ouyang said with an embarrassed smile. She turned to look at Nanny Dong, bowed sideways, and said, Sister, I'm really sorry. I really thought it was. I was jealous, so I caused such a big trouble. I'm sorry, sister. Please forgive me. Madam, you're wrong. My mother only gave birth to me. I don't have any sisters. Nanny Dong looked at Ouyang coldly with sarcasm in her eyes. Ouyang's words almost choked Xiao Wanru. She bit her lip and looked up at Xiao Wanru. Princess Chen, this marriage was arranged by my father at that time. I didn't know the specific situation. If I had known that my husband was like this at that time, I would not have married him. Now. I made a big mistake, but my husband still insisted on being with shopkeeper Dong. Ouyang's words were sad and extremely innocent. Xiao Wanru interrupted her rudely and said, Madam Wei, these old things have nothing to do with me, and I don't want to hear them. If there's nothing else, please go back. Don't interfere in the affairs of Butterfly Clothing Shop in the future. If there's anything about Butterfly Clothing Shop again, don't blame me for digging up these old things and arguing in court. Ouyang was stunned for a moment, and then reacted. She took Wei Dahai's hand and said repeatedly, Yes, we'll leave right away. We won't interfere in the affairs of Butterfly Clothing Shop in the future. We won't do it again. After saying that, she turned around and left with Wei Dahai, who still couldn't react. In the current situation, if Princess Chen really wanted to make trouble, the Wei's mansion would suffer a great disaster. No matter what Princess Chen's purpose was, it was the right thing to let them go and leave as soon as possible. The husband and wife came out of the accounting room in a sorry state. They did not dare to stay any longer and hurriedly left. The people who had originally stayed outside to watch the show saw the husband and wife's dejected appearance and their previous words. They immediately understood that the husband and wife were the ones who were truly guilty. It could be seen that they really plotted against Butterfly Clothing Shop. Many people pointed at their backs and cursed. Chapter 1136. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say net, thank you, Your Excellency. In the account room, Xiao Wanru said, Thank you, Your Excellency. Princess Chen, you're too polite. When Shiqi's eyes fell on Xiao Wanru, and his eyes were clear and natural. May I ask Princess Chen a question? Please go ahead, Your Excellency. Xiao Wanru said with a smile. I want to ask, when Princess Chen first came to the capital and saw me, you seemed to be kind to me. Why did you trust me so much? You even asked me to be your guarantor. Weren't you afraid that I would deceive you? When they first met in Butterfly Clothing Shop, Xiao Wanru was just an 11-year-old girl who had just arrived in the capital city. When Shiqi was not the top scholar at that time, but the third young master of the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion. It was certain that they had never met before. I was young at that time. When I saw you, I thought you were a good person, so I took it for granted and asked you for help. Now I think of it, I was really naive. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and couldn't help laughing. These words were spoken in a somewhat old-fashioned manner. She was not yet of marriageable age. Her pair of charming watery eyes slightly curved, revealing an unscrupulous gentleness. However, it also gave off a faint sense of alienation. She did not appear too close, but also did not make people feel too distant. Thank you, Your Excellency. When Shiqi withdrew his eyes and smiled a little coldly. He stood up and cupped his hands to Xiao Wanru. I still have something to do in the yamen. Goodbye. Xiao Wanru stood up, bowed sideways with a smile, and said, Thank you, Your Excellency, for what happened today. Without you, I don't know what would have happened. What happened today was her plan. She wanted to take down Wei Dahai with one blow and cut off Wei Dahai's hope. However, thanks to Wen Shiqi's proper preparation, Wei Dahai and his wife didn't dare to say anything even if they had other ideas. Even if they were sent to the court, Wei Dahai couldn't win the formal official document, not to mention Nanny Dong, who was on her side. Princess Chen, you're too polite. If Wei Dahai makes trouble again in the future, you can send someone to deal with it. Wen Shiqi said in a businesslike manner and turned to leave. There were many people in Butterfly Clothing Shop, who were all talking about Wei Dahai and his wife and Nanny Dong. Seeing Wen Shiqi come out, someone said in a low voice. Obviously, he recognized Wen Shiqi. She turned to the side and took a few steps to avoid Wen Shiqi. Then she looked at the account room whose door was slightly closed and looked at Wen Shiqi's back with a trace of disapproval in her eyes. Xiao Wanru was indeed a flirt. She not only seduced Chu Luyue but also got in touch with third young master Wen. Your Highness. The servant girl called out in a low voice, drawing her gaze back. Her gaze fell on the several bolts of silk in front of her, which she had randomly chosen to avoid being seen and heard by others just now. Xiao Minister Xian Chen Chen, and Chen. She came late and heard the general meaning, which aroused her curiosity, so she stayed to listen to the gossip. Unexpectedly, she saw Wen Shiqi coming out of Xiao Wanru's room. Wen Shiqi was one of the few noble childs and young talents in the capital city. Infanta Yuan also appreciated Wen Shiqi very much. She even thought that if she were to marry, she should marry such a noble child. Of course, it would be best if she could marry a prince. After all, she yearned for the high position of empress in the future. I'll take them all. Infanta Yuan said casually. After asking the maid to pay the bill, she left with her maid. Standing at the door and looking out, she didn't see Wen Shiqi. He should have left long ago. A gloomy look flashed across her eyes. Chu Luyue, Zhang Qilan, and now Wen Shiqi, Your Highness, is it time to go back to the mansion? The maid cautiously reminded her. Infanta left the mansion secretly, and Great Elder Princess didn't know it yet. The wedding day was approaching, and Great Elder Princess didn't want Infanta to go out casually. Let's go. Infanta Yuan nodded and was not in the mood to stroll anymore. After getting in the carriage, she thought for a while and then ordered the maid, go to Prince Zhou's yard outside the city. In the past, Chu Liuzhou had spent a lot of time in the yard outside the city. When she asked before, she knew that Chu Liuzhou had also been in the yard these days. Your Highness, this is not polite. The maid hurriedly advised. Nonsense. Infanta Yuan frowned unhappily and glared at the maid fiercely. The maid was so scared that she hurriedly lowered her head and didn't dare to persuade her anymore. The carriage turned a corner and went out of the city. At a street corner, Wen Shiqi appeared at the intersection with his hands clasped behind his back. He watched the carriage leave from a distance. The mark on the carriage was from Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion. Just now, from a distance, it should be Infanta Yuan. When in Butterfly Clothing Shop, Wen Shiqi seemed to see a familiar figure out of the corner of his eye. However, she avoided him quickly, so he didn't find out who it was. If it were in the past, Wen Shiqi would also smile and avoid her, not caring who was paying attention to him. However, now that he was serving in the Ministry of Justice, he naturally became more vigilant and deliberately kept an eye on her. Why did Infanta Yuan avoid him? Shouldn't Infanta Yuan be waiting to get married in the mansion at this time? She didn't wear a veil. Although he didn't see it clearly, she should have recovered from her injury. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her not to wear a veil. Looking at the direction in which the carriage was going, it turned into the central official road and sped up. It seemed that it was going to go out of the city along this official road. What was outside the city? Prince Zhou's yard. This answer naturally appeared in Wen Shiqi's mind. After thinking for a while, he looked at the direction in which the carriage was going and then turned to leave. Xiao Wanru didn't know what was going on outside, nor did she know that Infanta Yuan had a lot of imagination based on some things she saw out of context and even told it to Chu Liuzhou. Your Highness, is it really okay? They won't come again, will they? Madame Dong was still a little worried that Wei Dahai and his wife would not give up. She deeply hated this couple and didn't want to see them again. Wei Dahai doesn't dare to. If they continue to make trouble, they won't be able to get any benefits if they take it to court instead of settling it in private. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and comforted Madame Dong. But. Madame Dong had been very uneasy because of the trouble they made recently, so she always felt uncertain. Don't worry. They won't do it again. This couple is not simple. It's not just a simple money problem. Now their niece's matter is enough to keep them busy. Seeing that Madame Dong was still worried, Xiao Wanru revealed some news. If Commandery Prince Qing wants to marry the princess of the Su Kingdom, he has to let his niece be his concubine. Mo Chioi was also a woman who couldn't be seen through. How could she be simple? That's the best. It's best if they don't come again. Madame Dong made up her mind and said with gritted teeth. Since the princess said so, the princess of the Su Kingdom had just arrived in the capital. It seemed that Wei Dahai and his wife couldn't spare any attention to deal with her. When will the princess transfer the ownership of Butterfly Clothing Shop to you? In a few days, I'll ask Yujie to come over and take you to the Ministry of Justice to close the case. After that, everything will be done properly. Xiao Wanru said. When she wrote to Wen Shiqi before, she asked him to help her investigate the matter of the shop assistant involved in the case. Since Wen Shiqi mentioned it just now, it could be seen that it was not a big problem. Yes, I'll wait for Miss Yujie. Madame Dong nodded. The ownership of Butterfly Clothing Shop had been settled, so she breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, it was just a matter of transfer of ownership. Everything else could be done as usual. For Madame Dong, it was best to have one less reason for Wei Dahai to look for her. This matter was finally settled. Xiao Wanru asked about the situation of the shop again before leaving with her people. She had to ask Chu Luqian to send someone to investigate Wei Dahai. Was he so short of money? He even didn't hesitate to go against her, Prince Chen's wife. There should be other mysteries behind it. Wei Dahai and his wife returned to the mansion dejectedly. Both of them looked embarrassed. After asking everyone to leave, they looked at each other speechlessly. What should we do now? Wei Dahai touched his head and said in distress. He did need money, a large sum of money, which was supposed to be made up by Butterfly Clothing Shop. Did Commandery Prince Qing say anything? Madame Ouyang frowned tightly and asked after thinking for a while with a dark face, does he really intend to let Qiu Yi be his concubine? That's what Commandery Prince Qing meant. The one from Su country must also have a much higher bloodline than Qiu Yi. Wei Dahai said vaguely. What do you mean by much higher? Actually, it's about the same. Both of them have the bloodline of the princess, so how can it be much higher? Strictly speaking, Qiu Yi's bloodline is closer, so her bloodline is higher. It's just that she saw that the one in the Su Kingdom has a higher status, so she decided to change her mind. What did you tell us before? Madame Ouyang slammed her hand on the table and scolded angrily, what an ungrateful thing. Don't you think about who saved him? How dare you break off the engagement now? Wei Dahai fell silent and said after a long while, what's the use of being angry at this time? We can't really let him ruin the engagement with Qiu Yi. Why don't you go to Commandery Prince Qing's old princess and tell her that we spent so much effort to save them, but now we can't even give them a position at this time. What do you mean? It's all your fault. You should have let Qiu Yi marry Prince Qing earlier, but you said that you would delay it and not take Prince Chen's place. Now you've given them a reason to break off the engagement. Madame Ouyang said angrily. Don't worry. If Commandery Prince Qing wants to get married, he has to rely on us. Now it's the best way to prove our strength. It's just that we'll lose a sum of money. Wei Dahai said. Let's sell those pieces of land first, and then go to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. I'll talk to their old princess about it. Madame Ouyang said angrily. Now they could only tear down the east wall to mend the west wall. That's it for now. Madam, please go to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Wei Dahai said helplessly. He didn't have any ideas about Butterfly Clothing Shop, and he didn't dare to have any more ideas. Princess Chen had almost all the evidence. If he rushed forward, he would be courting death. Wei Dahai's forbearance was the reason why he could live peacefully until now without any serious problems. Chapter 1137. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net wonderful pop-up window free reading. When Xiao Wanru returned to the mansion, she went directly to the study. Chu Liuchen's study was in the attic where he lived before. It was obviously a 3-story attic, but from the outside, it only had 2 floors. Hearing that she came over, Xiao Xuanzi hurriedly took her to the 2nd floor and then left. Xiao Wanru left Yujie outside the door of the 2nd floor and went up the stairs. Chu Luqian was leaning on a wide chair and reading official documents. The sunlight outside the window fell on him, making his handsome face look like pearls and jade. He raised his beautiful eyes and saw Xiao Wanru. He waved to her and asked her to come over. Xiao Wanru came over. Before she said anything, she was pulled to sit down by the chair. Chu Luqian put his hand down and held her slender waist. He leaned over as if he had no bones and asked lazily, "How's it going?" Xiao Wanru couldn't move for a while. Xiao Wanru felt that she couldn't compete with Chu Luqian in terms of strength, so she stopped struggling and said helplessly, "It's been dealt with. In a few days, ask Yujie to go to the yamen and transfer the butterfly clothing shop back." Xiao Wanru had already told Chu Luqian about the butterfly clothing shop. Nothing wrong? Chu Luqian raised his eyebrows and looked at Xiao Wanru with a somewhat enchanting smile and glittering eyes. Nothing. I just feel that Wei Dehai and his wife are very short of money. Xiao Wanru said the doubts in her heart. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice, and she hesitated a little. She turned her head to look at Chu Luqian and asked, "Do you feel that Wei Dehai is unusual?" "It's more than unusual. It's very unusual," Chu Luqian said with a smile and threw the booklet in his hand on the desk. The desk was full of booklets. When Xiao Wanru came to see it before, there were not so many booklets. The emperor had really sent a lot of memorials to him. I heard that although Wei Dehai also has concubines, his backyard is relatively clean on the whole, and there are not so many people to support. Nanny Wei only has one nephew, so she must have given him a lot of money. Why does he seem to be crazy about money? Xiao Wanru said in confusion. Mammy Wei was the most useful person in front of the Empress Dowager, but she could still stay by the Empress Dowager's side. She must have a lot of money in her hands, and she only had Wei Dehai as a junior. It was not easy to find him. It could be seen that she really loved him. How could she not give him money? There weren't many people in the Wei residence that needed to be fed. Was Wei Dehai so poor that he dared to go against her, Princess Chen? If he wasn't so short of money, he wouldn't have done such a thing. Wei Dehai was born in a poor family. Later, he married the miss of Ouyang's mansion. His father-in-law was also a moderate official, and he used to have a good reputation among the officials. But apart from that, he had nothing else. Under the leadership of his father-in-law, he also started as a minor official, and then became an official of moderate rank. If it weren't for Nanny Wei, he wouldn't even have any real power. Chu Luqian said indifferently, narrowed his eyes, and said with deep eyes, "But such a minor official, although he didn't make much progress, he wouldn't make mistakes. He had been an official for so many years and never stood out. If his niece hadn't been the future princess of Commandery Prince Qing, I wouldn't have paid attention to him until now." Because of his moderate rank and his temper, he almost neglected Wei Dehai. If his niece was the future princess of Commandery Prince Qing, Chu Liuchen's attention would be attracted by Chu Liuchen's attention. Chu Liuchen's attention had been attracted by Xiao Wanru's matter. Now he was really interested in her. If she didn't pay attention to it, she wouldn't know it. Now that she paid attention to it, she found that she almost missed such a big fish. Xiao Wanru didn't want to pay too much attention to Chu Luqian. Since Chu Luqian had already known something suspicious about Wei Dehai, she didn't need to worry about it next. "I'm going to Marquis Xing's mansion," Xiao Wanru said softly. "What for?" Chu Luqian said indifferently. "Old madam is back. As her granddaughter, I have to go to see her, lest she sends someone over, which will make me seem too pretentious," Xiao Wanru said. Qing told her that old madam would return to the mansion in the afternoon. With old madam's character, if she didn't go, there would definitely be some trouble. It doesn't matter if she goes back. It's all thanks to you that she can come back safely this time. What else can she be dissatisfied with? Chu Luqian said unhappily. He really didn't like the people or things in Marquis Xing's mansion. If you go there, you will also be wronged. If it was possible, he would like to get rid of Marquis Xing's mansion directly, lest Xiao Wanru would always be implicated because of the affairs of Marquis Xing's mansion. No matter what, she is my elder. It's unreasonable if I don't go there. Xiao Wanru shook her head and said, with you there, I won't suffer any losses. She understood what Chu Luqian meant. The smile at the corners of her mouth was faint and gentle. She was less indifferent and her eyes were as clear as autumn water. Chu Luqian snorted coldly and said, since you're going there, you don't need to leave a meal. I'll go and come back early, but I should leave a meal for you. Xiao Wanru thought for a while and said, just tell her that I'm waiting for you to have a meal. Chu Luqian reached out and held one of her slender hands. His hands were warm. I'll go and come back soon. Don't worry. Nothing will happen. Marquis Xing's mansion is not the old Duke Xing's mansion now. At this time, old madam won't want to offend me. Xiao Wanru gently pinched Chu Luqian's hand with the back of her hand. Her eyes blinked twice and the corners of her mouth curled up. My second uncle is going to marry a concubine. The first thing old madam will do after entering the mansion should be to deal with this matter. Xiao Wanru said, I also want to find out about the girl named Anyang. Grandma said that there was such a servant girl around my mother, but she didn't marry with my mother at that time. She seems to be from Marquis Xing's mansion. When a woman married into her husband's family, the closest servant girl was usually the servant girl who came with her when she was married. Compared with these servant girls in her husband's family, these servant girls were likely to grow up with her and knew her living habits very well. Of course, it was better to use a familiar servant girl than a servant girl who knew nothing about her. But this Anyang seemed to be the principal servant girl of her mother at that time. Her grandma said that the 4 servant girls who came with her at that time were all the principal servant girls of her mother. They grew up with her mother and were very loyal to her mother. However, these people all got into trouble, but the servant girl prepared by Marquis Xing's mansion was not in trouble. Her grandma didn't pay attention to this servant girl before, but when her mother got into trouble, only she and her mother returned. As for the details, Marquis Xing's mansion didn't let her know. As for later, when her mother got into trouble, her grandma would not pay attention to an unfamiliar servant girl. If it weren't for what happened at present, no one would have thought that this servant girl would climb into Xiao Jing's bed and give birth to a daughter who didn't exist in the last life. Xiao Wanru was really curious about this. Xiao Jing didn't have this concubine in the last life, but now he had such a servant girl. Could it be that her rebirth changed a lot of things? But when she was reborn, if this illegitimate daughter wanted to give birth, she should have already been born. From this point of view, it had nothing to do with her rebirth. Hesitating in her heart, she frowned slightly, leaned back, and leaned into the reassuring arms with a faint smell of medicine. Compared with the smell of medicine on Chu Luqian's body in the past, it inexplicably made Xiao Wanru feel at ease both in the past and now. She closed her eyes and said softly, I always feel that this girl named Anyang is not simple. Since she is not simple, just get rid of her directly. Chu Luqian's approach had always been simple and rough. He took Xiao Wanru's delicate body into his arms and said lightly. She was just a servant girl. He had 100 ways to kill her. Even if she was not just a servant girl on the surface, so what? Don't do it. I'll deal with this kind of thing. Xiao Wanru was shocked and hurriedly reached out to hold Chu Luqian's hand, as if Chu Luqian would really do it at this time. She is related to my mother's affairs. I still want to find some clues from her in the past. It was not easy for her to find such a person. She did not want this girl named Anyang to slip away. Such a person must know something. Even if she was devoted to Xiao Jing, she had to find out something suspicious from other aspects. Well, it's up to you. Chu Luqian said dotingly, and the gentleness in his eyes diluted the hostility on his face. Xiao Wanru suddenly opened her watery eyes and said with a sweet smile, then I'd better leave immediately and go to Marquis Xing's mansion early to wait. I can also check something. Old Madam came back in the afternoon. She went back at this time. It was a little early, so she could be busy with her own affairs. Maybe Anyang would bump into her. How could she be reconciled to the fact that she did not let Anyang benefit from the previous plan? No matter who was behind it, there must be a plan. She had sent herself to the door. Seeing the cunning in her eyes, Chu Luchan nodded helplessly and said, "You can go now, but you can't stay for dinner at night. Just say that I said it." "Okay, I'll be back." Xiao Wanru nodded and agreed obediently. Looking at her gentle and beautiful look, Chu Luchan smiled and said in an extremely serious tone, "Don't tell me that I won't stay for dinner." "I won't stay for dinner." "They can't stay for dinner no matter what," Xiao Wanru said and looked at the handsome man in front of her. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice, revealing the clear figure in her eyes. Looking at him like this, the uncomfortable depression in the bottom of her heart also faded a little. Will concubine Lan be made a high-ranking? The words rushed out of her mouth, and when she finished speaking, her watery eyes wandered around uneasily. In fact, she really didn't want to know about this kind of thing. When he wanted to say it, he would naturally say it. She wouldn't force him. He won't. This position is very good. Since he has become an, why does he need to fight for a high position? So what if he has a high position? Isn't it good now? Isn't she pursuing this kind of position that is neither high nor low? Chu Luchan said with his deep eyes. He did not say it too clearly, nor did he avoid it. But even so, Xiao Wanru felt inexplicably distressed. She turned sideways, hugged Chu Luchan, buried her head in his arms, and said something irrelevant, "You still have me." Chapter 1138. Remember in 1 second, 800 $say net, no matter what, you still have me. No matter what, you still have me. Chu Liuchen's eyes became softer. He reached out to hold Xiao Wanru in his arms and looked down at the girl in his arms. Because of what she said, her delicate face turned pink. Even if she buried her head in his arms, he could still see the blush on her face. She looked very peaceful and happy, and even a little excited. No matter what, she was here. With her, he would have everything. "Don't worry, I won't be sad." The same inexplicable words made Xiao Wanru raise her head slightly and steal a glance at Chu Luchan. Seeing the tenderness in his eyes, she immediately lowered her head again. The two of them stopped talking and just enjoyed each other's warmth. There was no need to say anything more. Just leaning on each other like this had already shown their feelings. After coming out of Chu Liuchen's study, Xiao Wanru went straight outside and got in the carriage. This time, she took Qing, and Yujie with her, which was requested by Chu Luchan. Xiao Wanru's current identity was different, so it didn't matter if she took more people. The carriage went all the way to Marquis Xing's mansion. After getting the news, Zhao Shiran came out early and waited at the place where the carriage stopped. Yujie and Qing helped Xiao Wanru get out of the carriage. "Princess Chen." Zhao Shiran bowed and stepped aside. Unexpectedly, she saw second Miss Xiao Shiqiong there. It seemed that since she saw second Miss Xiao last time, second Miss Xiao had appeared in front of her from time to time. Xiao Shiqiong also bowed to Xiao Wanru. Xiao Wanru said with a smile, "First sister-in-law, I'll go to see third aunt first. Third aunt asked me to see her when I come back. Princess Chen, you go first. I'll go to prepare lunch first." Looking at the sky, Zhao Shiran said sensibly. Xiao Wanru came at this time to wait for old madam to come back in the afternoon, so she naturally had to have lunch in the mansion. "Thank you, first sister-in-law." Xiao Wanru narrowed her eyes slightly, and a faint trace of serenity flashed across her eyes. "Then I'll go to see third aunt first." "Help yourself, Princess Chen." Zhao Shiran stepped aside and asked Xiao Wanru to take 2 servant girls with her. Another servant girl went to report to the third branch. "Big sister, why don't you let me take Princess Chen there?" After Xiao Wanru walked away, Zhao Shiqiong said unwillingly. She had just hinted to her sister that she would take Xiao Wanru to the third branch. "What are you doing there?" Wasn't Xiao Zaihuan's words clear enough that day? Zhao Shiran's face darkened and he said unhappily. So what? Father has agreed with me. It doesn't matter to them. They are just jealous. Zhao Shiqiong said indifferently. After she went back that day, she implicitly expressed it to her father, and her father did not object. He also told her that the current Prince Chen was not the Prince Chen of the past, and asked her to be careful not to provoke Prince Chen's anger. He also warned her that she could not provoke Princess Chen. This Princess Chen was the person Prince Chen liked, so she was different in Prince Chen's heart. It was also for this reason that Zhao Shiqiong specially came to Marquis Xing's mansion. Today, old Madam of Marquis Xing's mansion returned, and Princess Chen should also come over. She wanted to build a relationship with Princess Chen first and make Princess Chen not hate her. It would be better if she could please Princess Chen. She said that she had to bring it up, and Princess Chen would take the initiative to bring it up. With this mentality, Zhao Shiqiong, of course, wholeheartedly wanted to please Xiao Wanru, but her sister dispelled the idea. She was really unhappy. This is Marquis Xing's mansion, not our minister's mansion. You are a guest, but Princess Chen is the host. She, the host, needs you, a guest, to lead the way. Third aunt won't like you either. She asked Xiao Zaihuan to invite Princess Chen there, so there must be something. Why do you, an outsider, follow her? Zhao Shiran said unhappily. He was really unhappy with his father's decision. His father used to do things very clearly, but why did he think more and more crooked now? How could he know that Prince Chen would let his sister marry into Prince Chen's mansion? Why did he think that Princess Chen would swallow her anger and take the initiative to marry a concubine for Prince Chen? When she married into Prince Chen's mansion, Xiao Wanru had not been married yet. They had been together for a period of time. Although they were not intimate, Zhao Shiran did not dare to look down on Princess Chen. When she married into Prince Chen's mansion, she almost had no chance to turn things around because of a little negligence. How could such a person be an ordinary woman? Her father took it for granted, and her second sister was also self-righteous. She wanted to persuade them, but no matter what she said, no one paid attention to her. Looking at Zhao Shiqiong, who had a longing face, Zhao Shiran was really helpless. In her opinion, it would not happen at all. If Prince Chen liked someone, how could he not even find a concubine after so many years? Prince Chen was favored by the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. If he really liked someone, as long as he asked, even Infanta Yuan and would have to marry her. Even if he was a sick child and could not live long, so what? Zhao Shiran didn't know where she got the feeling that her sister-in-law had been favored by Prince Chen long ago. There was no evidence, just a woman's intuition. However, there was no evidence to prove this intuition, so her sister would not believe it. Thinking of this, Zhao Shiran sighed helplessly again, reached out to take her sister's hand, and said, "Let's go back first and prepare a satisfactory lunch for Princess Chen, which will also make her happy. Third aunt is not in good health, so she will not keep Princess Chen for long." Hearing Zhao Shiran's words, Zhao Shiqiong also felt that it was reasonable, so she reluctantly followed Zhao Shiran back. When Xiao Wanru came back from the third branch of Marquis Xing's mansion, she would go to please Princess Chen. She believed that Princess Chen did not want an obedient concubine. Moreover, she was of noble status, so she volunteered to be a concubine. Princess Chen would not be dissatisfied with her. Xiao Wanru did not know that second Miss Xiao wanted to please her so that she would agree to marry her as a concubine. She took Yujie and Qing all the way to the third branch. When they arrived at the third madam's courtyard, someone had already reported to her, and Xiao Zaihuan and Xiao Kailing came out to welcome them. When they saw her, they were about to salute. Xiao Wanru smiled and asked them not to do so, and then they entered the main room together. The smell of medicine in the main room was very strong. The third madam was in poor health, so she took medicine almost all the year round. Even though the window was open at this time and some of the smell of medicine came out, the smell of medicine was still very clear. Xiao Wanru followed Xiao Zaihuan and Xiao Zaihuan into the inner room. When she saw the third madam lying on the bed, who was so thin that she almost had bones left, she couldn't help but be stunned. Was the third madam so seriously ill? The third madam was very thin, but it could be seen that she was calm. When she saw Xiao Wanru coming over, she struggled to get up. Xiao Wanru hurriedly stepped forward, held her down, and then sat down on the chair beside the bed. Why is the third aunt so ill? What did the doctor say? After sitting down, Xiao Wanru asked in surprise. She really did not expect that the third madam would be so ill. When Xiao Caihuan came to talk to her before, she did not mention that the third madam was so ill. Although the third madam was often in poor health, she did not look so sick that she could not get out of bed. I'm fine. I just caught a cold and am not in good health. I will be fine after a little rest. The third madam said indifferently. Her eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's face and she said with a smile. Has the third aunt invited an imperial physician to see her? Xiao Wanru asked with a frown. Not everyone can invite an imperial physician in the palace. The third madam shook her head. Didn't third uncle tell second uncle about it? Xiao Wanru asked in confusion. Although the third branch could not directly invite an imperial physician, Xiao Jing could. Your second uncle has been very busy recently and is hardly in the mansion. I don't have anything important to do, so I won't disturb him. The third madam shook her head. Xiao Jing was hardly in the mansion. Had he been staying with Yi and Yang all the time? He didn't even live in the mansion. It could be seen that Yi and Yang was a powerful person. Even so, we still have to invite an imperial physician to see her. Xiao Wanru said unhappily. She turned to Xiao Caihuan beside her and said, send someone to invite an imperial physician with my name card. Third aunt is so ill that we have to let the imperial physician see her. Xiao Caihuan's eyes turned red. She wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and nodded. The mansion was in a mess. No one cared about her mother's illness. She had told her father, but her father didn't care very much. He only said that he would talk to second uncle, but there had been no news. She wanted to go to second uncle, but she hadn't found him. Every time she went there, she couldn't find him. It was just a minor illness, but now her mother was so ill. Xiao Caihuan was full of anxiety. That day, her mother asked her to go to Prince Chen's mansion to see Princess Chen. Xiao Caihuan actually wanted to talk about it, but later she thought that she would talk about it when Xiao Wanru returned to the mansion. She didn't expect that Xiao Wanru would take the initiative to say so as soon as she came back. With tears in her eyes, she lowered her head and followed Yujie out in silence. She took the name card handed by Yujie and asked someone to invite an imperial physician over. In the room, the third madam's eyes were also slightly red. She sighed softly and said to Xiao Kailing, who was standing aside and wiping her tears, you can leave first and stay outside with your sister for a while. I have something to say to Princess Chen. Yes. Xiao Kailing turned around while crying. When she got to the door and saw Xiao Caihuan standing outside, she suddenly felt sad. She threw herself into Xiao Caihuan's arms and cried in a low voice. Mother will be fine. She will be fine. Xiao Caihuan comforted her in a low voice, but no one knew whether she was comforting Xiao Kailing or Xiao Caihuan. The injuries on her face had basically healed, and the few scars were almost invisible. But if one looked closely, there were still some. Fortunately, the makeup she used was good, and some small flaws were almost invisible. But even so, Xiao Caihuan still felt very inferior and almost didn't go out. She was afraid that something would really happen to her mother. She looked up at the door and held back the tears in her eyes. Her mother told her not to be willful anymore. Even if something really happened, her mother would find a way to protect them and never let them be schemed against. The room became quiet. The third madam wiped away the tears in the corner of her eyes and sat up slightly. Does Princess Chen think it's incredible that I'm so sick and weak, that I'm so ill in such a short time? Chapter 1139. Third aunt, although you used to be in poor health, you just caught a cold now. Why did you suddenly become like this? Xiao Wanru looked at the third madam from head to toe and said. She was indeed very surprised. Although the third madam had always been in poor health, she was just in poor health. Why did she become so ill now? It seemed that she was so ill that she couldn't be cured. Even without feeling the third madam's pulse, Xiao Wanru could see that the third madam was in a bad condition. She couldn't help frowning slightly and had an idea in her mind. My body is in poor health, so I can't bear a little illness. The third madam looked at Xiao Wanru and said seriously. Is it the medicine to improve your spirit that you used before? Xiao Wanru asked tentatively. It should be. Although I don't know why, it should have something to do with the medicine that Dr. Chiu gave me before, the third madam said. Is there any powder left? Xiao Wanru blinked and asked. No. The third madam shook her head and said with a wry smile, at that time, I took Dr. Chiu's medicine, which was excellent. My poor health improved a lot. At that time, I even had the spirit to deal with the affairs of the mansion. I even felt that I would recover soon. But recently, I felt that I was not good. It's like pulling silk to get rid of a disease. A small problem can become a big problem. Xiao Wanru was silent for a moment. She knew what the third madam meant. It was good when she took the medicine before, so she didn't deliberately leave anything like powder. Now she could only rely on her feeling. She didn't even leave the prescription. Where's the prescription? There's no prescription. Dr. Chiu gave me the medicine directly. Sure enough, the third madam's answer was exactly the same as she had guessed. Third aunt, don't worry. Maybe you'll recover after the imperial physician has seen you. After all, you just feel a little unwell. It's just a cold. Xiao Wanru could only comfort the third madam now. I know what's wrong with my family. Even if I'm afraid there's nothing I can do. It's my fault for believing that Dr. Chiu, whom the second branch found, was a good doctor. I thought that he was quite capable as a doctor. I didn't expect that he had drained all his energy. Now he's like this. The third madam coughed in a low voice and showed a sad smile on her face. Seeing that Xiao Wanru still wanted to comfort her, she shook her head and said, Princess Chen, I invited you here today not to talk about my illness. In fact, this illness is nothing to me. Maybe it is a relief. But the poor two children, Saihuan and Kailing, have lost their mother at this age. I really can't rest assured. Third aunt, the imperial physician always has a way. That was all Xiao Wanru could do now. Chen Wangfei, I beg you for one thing. I only beg you for one thing. Can you help me take care of these sisters? I don't ask for them to marry into a wealthy family. I just want them to marry someone who is truly good to them. Third madam said bitterly. Third aunt, I can't interfere in the marriage of third sister and fourth sister. Old madam has her own arrangement. It's not something that I, a junior, can interfere in. Xiao Wanru reminded third madam. She really didn't want to accept this matter. Not only did she not have a legitimate status, but she also let others criticize Prince Chen's mansion. Others would only say that she was rude and unreasonable and used Prince Chen's mansion to suppress her sisters. No one would say that she sincerely helped this pair of sisters. Chen Wangfei. Third madam suddenly opened her eyes wide and straightened her body. She wanted to get up and bow to Xiao Wanru, but her body went soft and she almost fell. Xiao Wanru got up, walked to the bed, and helped third madam lie down slowly. Although third madam lay down weakly, she held Xiao Wanru's hand tightly and said, Chen Wangfei, please help me. Third aunt, I really can't help you. My intervention in this matter is not as good as yours. Third aunt, your health is not so bad. Although you can't be as good as before after taking good care of yourself, it is not completely impossible. Xiao Wanru said softly, but her words were very firm. The affairs of Marquis Xing's mansion were in a mess, so she couldn't interfere at this time. Are you really so cruel? They are your cousins. Third madam looked at Xiao Wanru with tears in her eyes and said reproachfully, I beg you to save them, but you don't want to. Third aunt, it's not that I don't want to save them. On the one hand, they don't need me to save them. They are the misses of Marquis Xing's mansion. Their marriage will be decided by the elders. Even if old madam doesn't make the decision, there are still second uncle and third uncle. It's not up to me, a younger sister, to decide. Third aunt, do you think old madam will give this right to me? Or do you think I can argue with old madam? Seeing that third madam opened her mouth and wanted to speak, Xiao Wanru interrupted her rudely, Third aunt, you may think that since I am Princess Chen now, I can do some willful things and forcibly interfere in the affairs of Marquis Xing's mansion. Even if old madam is not satisfied, she won't do anything to me. But, third aunt, think about it. If something happens to you, the two sisters have to observe mourning first. After 3 years of mourning, third sister and fourth sister are old. Even if old madam and second uncle don't intend to do anything to them, it will be difficult for them to find a marriage. What's more, do you think old madam will let their marriage go? Old madam had always been calculating. It was not a big deal to sacrifice 1 or 2 granddaughters for the benefit of the mansion. Old madam could do this kind of thing. It was not easy to get married, and old madam was scheming behind. It could be imagined that Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Keiling's marriage was definitely not optimistic. These words were not pleasant to hear, but fell into the depths of third madam's heart and hit the softest part of her heart heavily. Xiao Wanru knew old madam's character, and so did she. If it really came to that point, the tragic situation of her 2 daughters could be imagined. Third madam didn't know where she got the strength, but she held Xiao Wanru's hand tightly. Her eyes were burning. She said in a low voice, but every word was heard by her, what if our third branch is separated from Marquis Xing's mansion? Third aunt, you want to separate? Xiao Wanru was surprised. The third branch of Marquis Xing's mansion had always been attached to the second branch. No matter before or now, it was the second branch who supported Marquis Xing's mansion. If third madam wanted to separate, it was not easy to do so. At least she had to get the consent of her third uncle. Third uncle had always been obedient to old madam and didn't spend much time in the mansion. It seemed that he was not close to third madam. Seeing that he didn't care about third madam's illness, Xiao Wanru knew that third uncle didn't care about third madam. Would he listen to third madam and separate? If third madam really separated, it would definitely not be a good thing for the third branch. He will get what he wants regardless of whether he wants to or not. Third madam gritted her teeth and said with a sharp look. She relaxed her hand slightly, but still held Xiao Wanru's hand, Princess Chen, although I don't know what happened to your mother and father at that time, I know that your mother's condition was abnormal. Her death is very suspicious. My mother, she was killed. Xiao Wanru's voice trembled involuntarily. She held third madam's hand and pursed her lips tightly. In fact, I don't know. I only remember that it was very strange. Infanta Qinghua's mind was a little unclear. After giving birth to Yuanhao, she had been in a daze. She said your nickname and sometimes your name. Her mental state was very bad, but it was impossible for her to go out. Moreover, she fell into the lotus pond and drowned alone. Third madam said. Didn't they say that my mother missed my father after giving birth, so she died of depression? Xiao Wanru's voice trembled, and her fingers twitched involuntarily as if something had hit her heart hard. It was so painful that she could hardly breathe and felt a burning pain in her heart. This was originally said to the outside. They were afraid that the outside would investigate, and they were also afraid that your grandmother would come to find them. In this case, your grandmother naturally didn't know. As soon as your grandmother heard that something happened to your mother, she only came to take a look. She didn't even see your mother's face before she fainted. After that, she fell ill and couldn't sleep. The funeral was also hastily arranged by the mansion. Third madam said. Xiao Wanru's face was as pale as snow without a trace of blood. She pursed her lips tightly and looked at third madam motionlessly. She knew that third madam must have something else to say. Sure enough, third madam paused and said, "At that time, I just felt suspicious, but I didn't dare to say anything. You know that the second branch has always been in charge of our mansion. I was in poor health and didn't win the favor of old madam and your third uncle. I gave birth to 2 daughters, so I was only the third madam in the mansion. Few people took me seriously. Moreover, there was no evidence. Even if I wanted to say something, I couldn't do anything. Not only was it ineffective, but it might also cause a big trouble." Third madam turned her head and coughed twice before turning back again. "I have been hiding this in my heart for so many years and haven't said anything about it for so many years. At that time, your third sister had an accident in the palace and her face was almost ruined. I quarreled with your third uncle and asked him to find your second uncle to find a good marriage for your third sister. After that, I talked about this suspicion. Your third uncle went to find your second uncle later. Later, there was the matter that Xiao Jia wanted to give up her marriage to your third sister." Xiao Wanru's hands trembled and her long eyelashes drooped. She knew about this matter. At that time, she was still wondering if third uncle knew some secrets, such as the matter that Xiao Jing had killed her father. Unexpectedly, it was not her father but her mother. The third branch threatened the second branch with her mother's matter and asked Xiao Jia to give up her marriage. She raised the corners of her mouth silently, but couldn't squeeze out a smile. Her lowered eyes were cold and gloomy. Her father and mother were used by these so-called relatives, and even their value after death was used. Marquis Xing's mansion was really heartless and outrageous. I know. We are also sorry for this matter. At this time, it can be regarded as my retribution for keeping what happened at that time a secret. Since I ask you to stand up for Huan, and Ling, I have to show you my sincerity anyway. In a few days, I will ask the third branch to leave Marquis Xing's mansion and reveal the fact that your mother died mysteriously at that time. Third madam said with a wry smile and raised her eyes to look at Xiao Wanru earnestly. I am also a dying person. It doesn't matter what happens to me. It's best if I can survive, but it doesn't matter if I can't, as long as Huan, and Ling, live well. Chapter 1140. Qianqian. Translator, Henyu Translations Editor, Henyu Translations. Xiao Wanru slowly clenched her fists after loosening them. She tried hard to suppress the emotions surging in her heart like uncontrollable flames, but she couldn't suppress the flames no matter how hard she tried. She had a feeling that she wanted to destroy everything in Marquis Xing's mansion. This place was full of an aura that she hated. Even if she just smelled it, she would feel like vomiting. Thinking of this, he felt the same way in his heart. He took a heavy step back and suddenly turned sideways, clutching his chest and vomiting. She didn't eat much in the morning, and it was almost lunchtime. When she was in Butterfly Clothing Shop, she only vomited some water. But even so, she still tried hard to vomit. Princess. Yujia and Qing's faces changed dramatically, and they hurried over to help Xiao Wanru. The third madam struggled to stand up and looked at Xiao Wanru anxiously. Hearing the sound inside, Xiao Caihuan and Xiao Kailing hurriedly pushed the door open and came in. Seeing that Xiao Wanru vomited all the water and her face was pale with an abnormal redness, they were so scared that they hurried to the third madam. Go and see your fifth sister. The third madam waved her hand and said. Xiao Caihuan took 2 steps forward and reached out to help Xiao Wanru. However, Qing stared at her vigilantly, so she didn't dare to touch Xiao Wanru for a while. She could only ask nervously, Fifth sister, what's wrong with you? Do you feel uncomfortable? Let's go back. Xiao Wanru covered her mouth with a handkerchief and said in a trembling voice. At this time, she was so fragile that she couldn't even stand steadily. Her mind was in a mess, and she just instinctively wanted to find a safe harbor so that she could get a moment of peace. She had to go home. She had to go home. The more she knew about what had happened in the past, the more unbearable she was. In fact, too many reasons couldn't explain her concealment at that time. She didn't need evidence. She just needed a kind reminder. She didn't remind her at that time because there was no benefit. She told Xiao Jing before because there was benefit. Yu Jia and Qing responded and supported her to go out. The third madam, who was lying on the bed, suddenly pushed away Xiao Keiling's hand, sat up, and said in a shrill voice, "Fifth madam, I will use the third branch as a prelude to reopen what happened in the past. No matter what, the third branch will leave Marquis Xing's mansion and reopen what happened in the past." By the time she finished speaking, Xiao Wanru had left with the help of the servant girl. The third madam collapsed weakly. Xiao Keiling hurriedly hugged her and cried anxiously, "Mother, mother." Xiao Caihuan couldn't care less about Xiao Wanru and turned to the bed to check on the third madam. The third madam took a few deep breaths. When she regained some strength, she held her two daughters' hands and said, "I'm fine. It's just that I used too much force just now. If I'm not here in the future, you should spend more time with your fifth sister. Although she is scheming, she is still young and her heart is not cold. Even if she takes it out on you, you have always been good to her. She will get over it." "Mother, did something happen?" Xiao Caihuan said anxiously. Xiao Wanru's reaction just now was too frightening. She didn't know what her mother had said to her. As for the last few words her mother had shouted just now, she didn't understand. What did separation mean? Why would the third branch take the initiative to ask for separation? She even talked about the things that happened in the past. What happened in the past? The more Xiao Caihuan thought about it, the more flustered she became, and her eyes turned red. If she had known earlier, she would have listened to them secretly just now, so that she wouldn't have said anything now. She didn't know, so she was flustered. You don't need to know the details. You should listen to your mother. No matter what, you should treat your fifth sister as a sister. Even if something happened to me, it was because of the second branch. It was the second branch who invited Dr. Chiu to treat me. Not only the second branch, but also your grandmother. I don't believe that she really doesn't know anything. She doesn't know that Dr. Chiu's medical skills are poisonous. He doesn't treat people, but drains their energy and spirit, the third madam said with difficulty, and a trace of hatred flashed across her eyes. How could she not hate it? It was the old woman and the second branch who caused her to be in such a state. The imperial physician came quickly. Hearing that Princess Qin invited him, he came immediately without delay. After checking the third madam's condition, he shook his head. "Imperial physician, how is my mother?" Xiao Keiling asked. She was younger and less scheming. Seeing that her mother's face was pale and dark, she had already panicked and didn't pay attention to the meaning of her sister and mother's words. She just looked at the imperial physician anxiously and was in a panic. The imperial physician shook his head again, looked at the two sisters, and then looked at the third madam lying on the bed. Madam has been suffering from physical deficiency for a long time. This time, the illness is very serious. I'm afraid that you have to take good care of yourself to recover. His words were very implicit. The third madam's hand twitched, and then she slowly opened it with a wry smile on her face. At least she wouldn't die immediately. There was still some time at present. She could still do something to make up for it, which could be regarded as a good karma for her daughter. The imperial physician went aside to prescribe medicine. Hearing that their mother was already at the end of her life and could only hold on for a few months at most, the two sisters cried uncontrollably. Later, Xiao Keiling asked Xiao Keiling to wipe away her tears, force a smile, and return to the main room. She asked the servant girl to boil the medicine while helping the third madam lie down. The third madam asked the servant girls to leave, leaving only the mother and daughter in the room. She sighed, looked at Xiao Caihuan, and said with a slightly serious face, "Huan, Ling, I want to separate from the mansion. If I take you away, you will no longer be the missus of Marquis Xing's mansion. I wonder if you will resent me." Although Marquis Xing's mansion had declined, it was still a noble family. If the third madam was separated from Marquis Xing's mansion, she would only be an ordinary miss, which was completely different from the missus of Marquis Xing's mansion. Their status would be degraded, and it would be more difficult for them to choose a marriage. Mother, you can do whatever you want. Xiao Caihuan had already faintly sensed something and said after thinking for a while. Xiao Kailing was a little confused. She looked at her mother and then at her sister. Thinking of her mother's health, her eyes turned red again, and she wiped her tears with a handkerchief. I'm afraid that Marquis Xing's mansion will be destroyed. The third madam murmured. Xiao Caihuan's heart skipped a beat and her face changed slightly. Mother, there must be an inside story behind Infanta Qinghua's death. Your father just mentioned it to your second uncle, and your second uncle immediately gave in. He also gave up Xiao Jia's marriage and was willing to let you enter Commandery Prince Qing's mansion as a concubine. At that time, I was also delusional, so that you fell into such a position. If at that time, directly told the head of the 5 maids, she would definitely give you a hand at this time. The third madam was very regretful. Even if she couldn't tell Rui, and great elder princess more than a decade ago, she should have hinted it to Xiao Wanru before. It was too late to say it now, but she hated the second madam. She hated old madam and wanted to protect her 2 daughters. She could only ask for Xiao Wanru's forgiveness and Xiao Wanru's protection of her daughters in this way. Huan, Ling, remember, no matter what happens, you are not allowed to resent Princess Chen. We owe her this. The third madam looked at her 2 daughters, stretched out her slightly cold hands, held one in each hand, and repeated it again. With resentment on her thin face, she stared at a place in the air and said, "It's all the fault of the second madam. It's all the fault of madam of the Jiang family and Xiao Jing." Xiao Wanru was stopped and helped out with her weak body. Before she went far, she met Zhao Shiran. Seeing Xiao Wanru's situation, he was shocked and hurried forward, but was avoided by Qing, and Yujie. After that, no matter how Zhao Shiran tried to persuade her to stay, the 2 maids tried their best to help Xiao Wanru walk out. Since their master was unwilling to stay, they would definitely protect her and leave. Coincidentally, when they arrived at the place where the carriage was parked, a carriage came in and Nanny Yu got out of the carriage. Seeing Xiao Wanru and Zhao Shiran, Nanny Yu was stunned for a moment and hurriedly stepped forward to salute. "Greetings, Princess Chen. Our princess is not feeling well and has to go back first." Yujie replied bluntly. Xiao Wanru leaned against Qing, with her eyes half closed, and most of her body was carried forward by Qing, and Yujie. "Isn't Princess Chen here to pick up old madam?" Nanny Yu was stunned for a moment and asked in surprise. She really thought that the mansion had learned the news that old madam suddenly came back first, so Princess Chen and first grandma came out to pick her up one after another. "Our princess is not in good health, so she has to go back now. She will come back next time when she is better," Yujie said coldly. She and Qing were about to take Xiao Wanru to the carriage of Prince Chen's mansion. The curtain of the carriage, which had just arrived, was suddenly pulled open, revealing old madam's gloomy face. "Fifth miss, since you are here, you have to go back after lunch. Otherwise, how will others think of our mansion?" Hearing Nanny Yu say that Xiao Wanru was outside, old madam was delighted. She had wanted to put on airs, but she didn't expect that Xiao Wanru was going to leave. Old madam was in a bad mood at once. "Princess Chen, grandma is back. You can leave after lunch." Zhao Shiran, who had chased after old madam all the way, immediately agreed with her when he saw old madam. She still didn't know what had happened. Why did Princess Chen look so bad after she went to the 3rd branch? She leaned on the servant girls listlessly and was almost half supported and half carried by the 2 servant girls. She was taken out by the 2 servant girls. "Thank you, old madam, but our princess is not feeling well and has to go back first." Yujie bowed to old madam's carriage and said. "How dare a servant girl interrupt? Slap her." Being refused by a servant girl, old madam was so angry that she patted the carriage pole beside her hard and said. The 2 rough old maids beside her carriage looked at each other hesitantly and came over cautiously. It seemed that they were going to reach out to Yujie. "Hurry up. She is just a cheap servant girl." As a grandmother, can't I teach my granddaughter's servant girl a lesson? Seeing the two old maids cowering, old madam was particularly angry. Not to mention the two servant girls, even if she wanted to slap Xiao Wanru, no one would say anything about it. Xiao Wanru suddenly opened her eyes and said word by word, "Whoever dares to touch the servant girl of Prince Chen's mansion will be cut off." Chapter 1141. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say net. Xiao Wanru opened her eyes at some point and looked at old madam coldly without dodging. Xiao Wanru opened her eyes at some point and looked at old madam with cold eyes without avoiding her gaze. Her face was pale without a trace of blood, but her lips were so red that they seemed to be bloodthirsty. There was a strange sense of incongruity. Old madam saw a bit of gloominess on her delicate and beautiful little face and couldn't help but panic. But she immediately flew into a rage. She was Xiao Wanru's biological grandmother and her elder. How dare she stare at her like this and talk to her like this? The two rough old maids had already stopped and stayed aside, for fear that Princess Chen would punish them. Today was different from the past. The servants of Marquis Xing's mansion all understood this. Of course, they didn't dare to rush to Xiao Wanru and act arrogantly. The person in front of them was Princess Chen, not just fifth Miss Xiao. "Xiao Wanru, how can you talk to grandma like this?" Old madam said angrily. She got out of the carriage with the help of a servant girl beside her and shouted. "What do you want me to say to you, old madam?" Xiao Wanru said firmly. "You're rebellious, unfilial thing. Even if I lose face today, I will expose your disobedience and unfilial things. The royal family will not want a daughter-in-law like you anymore." Old madam scolded loudly. In fact, she didn't want to fall out with Xiao Wanru. The current Princess Chen was not the former Princess Chen. It was said that Prince Chen was very likely to be appointed as the crown prince of the Eastern Palace, and Princess Chen might be the future mother of the country. However, she had to suppress Xiao Wanru at the moment. Otherwise, she couldn't let her seek benefits for Marquis Xing's mansion. Old madam was still having such a sweet dream at this moment. "If old madam thinks that I am disobedient and unfilial, you can ask the Empress Dowager to make a decision." Xiao Wanru said sharply, "If the Empress Dowager thinks that I am indeed disobedient and unfilial, she will judge me. If the Empress Dowager thinks that I am right, she will definitely make a decision for me. Old madam, please." Xiao Wanru moved her hand forward and looked at old madam with cold eyes. "Good, you actually used the Empress Dowager to suppress me. You only dare to do such a thing when your wings have grown strong. If I had known that you were unfilial in your bones, just like your mother, I wouldn't have allowed your father to marry your mother. Sure enough, she is unfilial and unlucky. Even her daughter is so unfilial and unlucky." Old madam was so angry that her eyes were on fire, and she spoke without thinking. She had always had the final say in Marquis Xing's mansion, and she had never been contradicted like this. She had come back with a good idea, so she deliberately came back earlier to discuss with her son how to maximize the benefits of Marquis Xing's mansion and how to make better use of Xiao Wanru. Unexpectedly, he met Xiao Wanru as soon as he returned to the mansion. Originally, he thought it was a good thing, but he didn't expect things to take a turn for the worse. Complain to the Empress Dowager? How could she dare? She had been punished by the Empress Dowager before. Now that she had just returned to the mansion, she caused trouble again. The Empress Dowager must be very angry. "My mother is unfilial. Old madam, do you dare to shout at the door?" Xiao Wanru said sternly. You are unfilial. Even if you gave birth to an ungrateful wretch, he is still better than you." Old madam was so angry that she staggered and fell to the ground. She rolled her eyes and fainted. Zhao Shiran and Nanny Yu ran over anxiously. One pinched the middle of her throat, and the other shouted on the side. It took them a lot of effort to wake her up. She came back. Xiao Wanru looked on coldly. She didn't leave, but she didn't go forward either. Old madam fainted in time just now. It was too coincidental. Even if she didn't get close, she could see that although her eyes were closed, her eyelids moved from time to time. It was obvious that she was awake. Princess Chen, no matter what old madam did, she is still your elder and the biological mother of the heir of Duke of Xing. Can you really watch her faint out of anger? If this gets out, it will be bad for your reputation. Seeing that old madam finally woke up, Nanny Yu took a few steps forward to persuade her. When old madam woke up, she burst into tears regardless of her dignity. While crying, she said, "My poor son," she was talking about how she had raised Xiao Wanru's father and cried bitterly. Faint out of anger. Who saw it? Xiao Wanru said coldly with sarcasm in her eyes. She watched old madam put on a show. Old madam of Marquis Xing's mansion, who was originally superior, sat on the ground like a shrew, crying and shouting. Your Highness, let's go back to the mansion. It has nothing to do with us whether old madam fainted or not. We didn't see old madam on the way here just now, so we happened to miss her. Yujie lied with her eyes open, as if she was really not afraid of Marquis Xing's mansion making trouble. Your Highness, don't be angry. No matter how long some people live, their lives are in vain. They look noble, but in fact, they are worthless. Qing also agreed and squinted at old madam. In fact, she wanted to fight more. Compared with talking, fighting was her strength. The prince had said that if anyone tried to harm the princess, she could go forward and fight. If anything happened, the prince would take responsibility. But now the princess did not order her to do it, so she could only wait. Old madam's face turned livid and she almost fainted. Seeing Xiao Wanru walk around her to the carriage with her two maids after saying that, she could only gnash her teeth with hatred. Qinghua, the bitch, was really not a good person. Now she wished that Infanta Qinghua could appear in front of her and give her a few slaps to vent her anger. Go, stop her. Old madam said with difficulty. She only felt dizzy and her hands and feet were cramping. Nanny Yu looked at Xiao Wanru and then at old madam. She took a few steps forward helplessly and caught up with Xiao Wanru. Princess Chen, please take a look at old madam. Old madam is in a bad condition. Xiao Wanru ignored her and continued to walk forward. Nanny Yu was very anxious. She took a few steps forward and turned to the front of Xiao Wanru's carriage. She wanted to reach out to stop Xiao Wanru, but was pulled by Yujie. She spun out and held a tree beside her to stand firm. The two maids helped Xiao Wanru get into the carriage, and the carriage left. Xiao Wanru, you. Old madam's lips trembled and her face turned livid. She reached out to point at the back of the carriage, trembling and unable to say a word. Young madam, go and get a doctor. Nanny Yu knew at a glance that it was not good, so she rushed over and ordered Zhao Shiran loudly. Zhao Shiran frowned unhappily. No matter how favored Nanny Yu was, she was just a servant. How dare she order her? However, seeing that old madam was in a bad condition, she suppressed her anger and turned around to order someone around her to go to the third branch to get an imperial physician to take a look at old madam. She came here because she heard that Xiao Wanru had asked an imperial physician to treat third madam. Several people hurriedly carried old madam into the Chuntang courtyard. The imperial physician had been waiting there. After feeling old madam's pulse, he asked someone to take out a set of needles and gave old madam acupuncture. Only then did old madam's condition improve. Zhao Shiran accompanied the imperial physician to the side room to get a prescription. After the prescription was made, the imperial physician said, "Old madam of your mansion has shown signs of a stroke. If she doesn't take good care of it, she will easily have a stroke. This time, I happen to be here. If I had been a little slower, she would have been in trouble. Just now, old madam and fifth sister had some disputes. It won't happen again." Zhao Shiran frowned tightly and said helplessly, "Imperial physician, can you, young madam, I still have something to do in the imperial palace, so I can't stay here. Just take the medicine according to this prescription and take good care of it. It's easy for old people to have a stroke. In fact, it has nothing to do with others. It may be that old madam of your mansion didn't eat enough before and didn't exercise much. As she is old, everything is not good. The imperial physician shook his head, interrupted Zhao Shiran's words, and handed over the prescription. Zhao Shiran carried the medicine box, shook his head, and turned to leave. He didn't want to know what happened in Marquis Xing's mansion, and he was even more unwilling to get involved in it. What happened to Princess Chen had nothing to do with him. He was an imperial physician, not an official of the Ministry of Justice, so he didn't want to figure out the whole story. Obviously, old madam of Marquis Xing's mansion was not easy to deal with. He had also heard in the imperial palace that this old madam was not kind and it was not a big deal for her to quarrel with Princess Chen. It was said that this old madam did not treat Princess Chen as her granddaughter at all. As for the young madam of Marquis Xing's mansion, she was obviously a smart person, but there were smart people in the imperial palace. No matter how honest the imperial physician was, he would not testify for what happened in Marquis Xing's mansion. Did Princess Chen make old madam of Marquis Xing's mansion so angry that she almost had a stroke? It would not do him any good to say this. Prince Chen was the last person to be trifled with. Seeing the imperial physician leave as if he was fleeing, Zhao Shiran's face darkened with the prescription in his hand. The imperial physician was so arrogant. He had thought that he could take advantage of Xiao Wanru. Young madam. Qiu Yu, her maid, came over and said in a low voice. Zhao Shiran lowered his head and looked at the prescription in his hand. He raised the corner of his mouth silently, walked to the window, picked up the writing brush used by the imperial physician just now, thought for a while, and added another medicine on it. After adding the medicine, he looked at it carefully and found that the handwriting was the same. A trace of sadness silently flashed across his eyes. It was good that the old woman could not get up. Of course, it was not good for her to die. She still needed to deal with the affairs of her father-in-law's mistress. It was good for her to lie in bed and recuperate. Go and get the medicine according to this prescription. Zhao Shiran waved the prescription in his hand and said. Qiu Yu nodded knowingly and went out to find Nanny Yu with the prescription. She had better not take over the task of getting the medicine. If something really happened, she would not be able to get rid of it. Only a few people around Zhao Shiran knew that she was proficient in medical skills. Nanny Yu took the prescription, looked at it for a while, and immediately sent someone to the pharmacy to get the medicine. While they were busy, Xiao Jing heard the news and hurried to Chuntang courtyard. Greetings, father. Zhao Shiran, who had just come out of the wing room, stepped forward and saluted Xiao Jing when he saw him. Xiao Jing waved his hand impatiently and went straight into the middle room. After Nanny Yu led him in, she retreated to the door. Seeing Zhao Shiran standing at the door of the wing room, she smiled uneasily and explained in a low voice, "Old madam is not feeling well, so she doesn't want too many people to follow her." Chapter 1142. The mother and son had something to hide from him. Zhao Shiran smiled and nodded. He looked up at the door and quietly returned to the wing room. He sat down on the stool in the wing room and looked at the room next door. It seemed that the mother and son had a lot of secrets, and he felt that it was a little weird. In the room, old madam leaned against the bed and had calmed down. Seeing her son come in, she said, "What's wrong with you? Why did you let that woman marry into the house? She is just a servant girl. Didn't you say that you would keep her as a plaything?" "Mother, it's all for Ru, Xiao Jing sat down on the chair beside and said with a frown without asking his mother how she was doing. He reached out and touched his head, feeling very upset. "What's wrong with Ru, Old madam was stunned and asked in astonishment. "What should we do with Ru now? No matter who inherits the throne in the future, Bao Lin, who has no children, will be locked in the Yuhui nunnery for the rest of her life," Xiao Jing said. Old madam's eyes sharpened and she said sharply, "What do you want?" "Mother, Prince Cheng has said that as long as Ru can come out, he will give Ru the position of concubine. If Prince Cheng can ascend to the throne in the future, Ru may be promoted further." Xiao Jing lowered his voice and pointed up, which represented the throne of the highest imperial power, the dragon throne. You want her to follow Prince Cheng? Old Madam said in surprise and unconsciously lowered her voice. Is more optimistic about Prince Yu. Prince Yu can't defeat Prince Cheng. Xiao Jing said angrily. If she had listened to me at the beginning, how could she have fallen into such a situation? If Prince Yu was a governor, how could he have quarreled with Prince Shou and put our Marquis Xing's mansion in a mess? Xiao Jing didn't blame his daughter for fooling around. He only blamed Chu Luiyue for his incompetence, which made their mansion suffer such a big loss. However, they didn't dare to talk about it, so they felt very aggrieved. Mother, I've arranged it properly. When Yi Yinyang enters our mansion and brings a daughter in, can enter our mansion in the name of an illegitimate daughter. An illegitimate daughter is also a daughter. As long as I make Yi Yinyang a co-wife, she will be a legitimate daughter. Our mansion will admit it. It doesn't matter if others gossip about it. Concubine Lan was an illegitimate daughter at that time, but she still entered the palace. Xiao Jing said disapprovingly. Old Madam gasped and asked anxiously, where did you get your illegitimate daughter? I thought Anyang didn't give birth. My mother didn't give birth, but I can say that she did. No one can find out where she used to live, let alone know that she didn't have a daughter. As long as she doesn't say it, and I don't say it, everyone will think that I have another daughter. Xiao Jing said. He had no choice. Xiao Yenru was his daughter who he had spent so much effort to cultivate. How could he be willing to lose her in vain? At present, it was for the good of everyone that his daughter could live a good life. For the sake of his daughter, he even didn't dare to compete with Rui, an great elder princess, for the position of heir of Marquis. He was afraid that Rui, an great elder princess, would be angry. At that time, she would even interfere in this kind of thing and ruin his plan. What he wanted was the future, not the current position of heir of Marquis Xing. Even if the position of heir of Marquis Xing temporarily fell on his nephew, so what? At that time, the position of heir of Marquis Xing belonged to his elder brother. Later, it would be him who inherited the position. As long as he was careful, nothing was impossible. You already have a co-wife. Now Madame Jiang is your co-wife. Old Madame reminded him. There was only one main wife and one co-wife at most. However, Xiao Jing's current situation was special. He didn't have a main wife, but he had a co-wife. If he married another co-wife, the etiquette would not allow it. After saying that, Old Madame suddenly thought of something and said anxiously, you don't want Madame Jiang to regain the position of the legal wife. That won't do. The Empress Dowager's intention has been irrevocable. Madame Jiang would definitely lose the position of the legal wife. It's all Madame Jiang's fault that things have become like this. If she hadn't done this kind of thing at that time, things wouldn't have become like this now. Since she also harmed she should bear the consequences. Xiao Jing said coldly, with a dark light flashing in his eyes. You don't want Madame Jiang. Old Madame's lips trembled. Even if she didn't like Madame Jiang now, she didn't want to kill Madame Jiang. Mother, apart from this, is there any other way to save her? Madame Jiang is already like this now. She even caused me and my son to fall into poverty with her. It's better to fight for my daughter. It can also be regarded as her motherly intention. Xiao Jing said. Old Madame's heart suddenly beat wildly. If these words were said by Madame Jiang, it would definitely make people feel that she was motherly. But these words were said by Xiao Jing, which gave people an indescribable feeling of malice. Mother, do you want to keep Madame Jiang or her? Seeing that the time was ripe, Xiao Jing said again. Xiao Yenru and Madame Jiang. Needless to say, Old Madame liked Xiao Yenru. Not to mention that Xiao Yenru was her biological granddaughter, she couldn't really give up Xiao Yenru because of her infinite possibilities after coming out. Xiao Yenru was the granddaughter she held in the palm of her hand with infinite hope. Other granddaughters could be sacrificed for her. In this case, it seemed that Madame Jiang could also be sacrificed. Moreover, Madame Jiang was Xiao Yenru's daughter. For the sake of her daughter, there was nothing that Madame Jiang couldn't bear to sacrifice her life. Thinking of this, old Madame nodded slowly. She thought that Madame Jiang would definitely think so. How to arrange this matter? Have you already made up your mind? Since old Madame had made up her mind, she continued to ask. Let's take Ru-er out first and raise her in our mansion as an illegitimate daughter. Since they are biological sisters, it's normal for them to have some similarities. Her preferences are different from Ru-er's preferences in the past, and she dresses differently. Moreover, she doesn't meet outsiders, so no one will say anything. After a period of time, send her to Prince Cheng's mansion. Xiao Jing had naturally planned it long ago. He was not surprised that old Madame would agree to this matter, so he immediately told her everything. Are you really going to let that servant girl marry into the mansion? Old Madame was still a little embarrassed. Xiao Jing was a marquis. She was really unwilling to let a servant girl marry into the mansion as a co-wife. Mother, if we don't do this, Ru-er can't come back and be raised in the mansion legitimately. Xiao Jing whispered. He knew what old Madame was worried about. In fact, he was also unwilling to do this, but he had no choice. This was the best way. How to deal with Madame Jiang? Old Madame thought for a while and said slowly in the end without saying anything. Madame Jiang couldn't have an accident for no reason, especially when she had just returned to the mansion. At this time, it was easy for people to speculate. Xiao Jing nodded. Madame Jiang indeed couldn't have an accident for no reason. He also had to avoid arousing suspicion. He had raised a mistress and wanted to bring her into the mansion. At this moment, Madame Jiang had no legitimate reason to have an accident, which would make people suspect him. He looked up at old Madame and suddenly asked, Mother, what happened to you before? Why is your mouth a little crooked? My mouth was crooked. Old Madame was stunned. Xiao Jing stood up, walked to the dressing table, picked up a small bronze mirror, turned back and handed it to old Madame. Old Madame took it and looked at it. She was furious. Her mouth was indeed crooked, and the crooked was very obvious. Xiao Wanru, this bitch, is really an ungrateful person. Now she has made me so angry with her because of Prince Chen. Just now, Nanny Yu had implicitly told old Madame that she had a small stroke just now. Now she was fine and she just needed to take a good rest. She didn't expect that this small stroke would make her mouth crooked. She was very angry. Mother, what do you think of letting Madame Jiang die in the hands of Princess Chen? Xiao Jing had an idea and suddenly smiled. What do you mean? Old Madame raised her head and asked anxiously without any hesitation, blame Madame Jiang's death on that girl? Can this work? Mother, why not? No matter how difficult it is, it can be done as long as the plan is appropriate. Xiao Jing said disapprovingly. He reached out to lift his robe and sat down again. If it weren't for his good plan, he wouldn't have become Marquis Xing now. What are you going to do? Old Madame leaned over and asked in a low voice. Xiao Jing thought for a moment, lowered his head and whispered in old Madame's ear. One of them spoke, and the other nodded repeatedly. When Xiao Jing came out, Zhao Shiran hurried over from the wing room. After looking at his daughter-in-law, Xiao Jing told her to serve old Madame well and then turned to leave. Nanny Yu and Zhao Shiran entered the room together. Counting the time, the mother and the son had been talking in the room for 2 hours. Old Madame was tired and had no energy to lean on Xiao Jing. With the help of 2 people, she lay down to rest and fell asleep after a while. Looking at old Madame's crooked mouth, Zhao Shiran looked calm. First Grandma. Nanny Yu covered old Madame with the quilt and said softly. Zhao Shiran nodded and followed Nanny Yu to the door. First Grandma, old Madame has to trouble you in this situation. Nanny Yu said with a wry smile. Now the mansion needed the first grandma in front of her. Nanny Yu, what are you talking about? It's my duty to take care of my grandmother. Zhao Shiran said softly with a gentle and non-aggressive smile. Looking at the gentle Zhao Shiran in front of her, Nanny Yu's eyes turned red. Once upon a time, first Miss Xiao also served old madam in such a gentle manner. Wiping away her tears, Nanny Yu turned her head and said with a forced smile, Marquis just told me that old madam agreed to Marquis's marriage and asked first grandma to prepare for it first. When the new madam marries, it should be well prepared and a new garden needs to be tidied up. The new miss will marry into the mansion. The so-called new miss was, of course, the illegitimate daughter. Zhao Shiran was stunned and her eyes suddenly widened. She didn't expect that old madam would immediately agree to Xiao Jing's marriage. She immediately felt angry. She suppressed her anger and said stiffly, "What kind of garden do you need?" She would go to Xiao Hua and later and ask him what he meant. Didn't he say that old madam would definitely help her when she came back? Such a lowly mistress actually wanted to become the second wife, suppressing her, the dignified daughter of the minister, and becoming her mother-in-law. Zhao Shiran really couldn't take this lying down. She couldn't do anything about Madame Jiang. After all, she was Xiao Hua An's biological mother. Now such a dirty woman also wanted to step on her. What did she mean? How could she go out in the future? Chapter 1143. A complete copy. Update the latest chapter on the Crown Princess's medical skills as soon as possible. The gauze curtain at the window fell, which was very thin and translucent. A layer of light gauze fell on the bed near the window. Xiao Wanru was lying with her eyes closed, and her hand was hanging on the pulse pillow outside the bed. After feeling her pulse, Qi Ju slowly put down her hand, glanced at Chu Luchen in front of the bed, and walked out of the door. Yu Jie hurriedly stepped forward to put down Xiao Wanru's hand. Chu Luchen walked to the door and stood still. "How is it?" "Don't worry, Your Highness. It's nothing serious," Qi Ju said. "Since it's nothing serious, why did you suddenly vomit like this?" Chu Luchen said coldly. Maybe Princess heard or saw something that she couldn't accept, so she had such a big reaction because she couldn't bear it for a while. She will be fine after a period of recuperation. Qi Ju thought for a while and reminded Chu Luchen implicitly that it seemed to be a psychological problem. Qi Ju also found this matter very strange. Qi Ju had seen Princess Chen for more than 1 or 2 days. Qi Ju admired this young but determined Princess Chen very much. Young people were wise, and every step she took was very steady. Even though there were so many ups and downs during this period, such a young girl could do so. She was really a good match for Prince Chen. There was no one more suitable for Prince Chen than Princess Chen. Qi Ju was a little curious about what could make Princess Chen, who was so determined, unable to bear it. He coughed in a low voice and pretended to say, "Your Highness, if you tell me what happened to the princess in Prince Chen's mansion, I can still analyze it." How could Chu Luchen not understand Qi Ju's intention to watch the fun? He said with a gloomy face, "It's better for you to stay and listen. It happens that Xiao Xuanzi told me that he is short of people and can't handle it alone." Who was Xiao Xuanzi? Qi Ju was stunned. He picked up the medicine box and said with a serious face, "Your Highness, I suddenly remember that there are still some things about medicine that I can't figure out. There is something wrong with Dr. Qiu's medical skills. I have to discuss it with Mingqiu," Qi Ju said. Without waiting for Chu Luchen to say anything, he ran away quickly. He didn't want to be a eunuch. Their Qi family didn't have a descendant yet. He had to leave a root for the old Qi family. "Your Highness, Marquis Xing asks to see the princess." A guard came in and reported to Chu Luchen. "Take him to the parlor on the side," Chu Luchen said slowly with a trace of malice flashing in his eyes. The guard answered and went outside to invite Xiao Jing to a flower hall. Xiao Jing frowned and looked around. This was the first time he had come to Prince Chen's mansion, but he could tell that this should be the outer courtyard. He felt inexplicably uneasy. He came to look. And looked. After, Xiao Jing's Xiao Ling King. Chen was of a prince, Xiao prince as possible, the prince was long as, prince was. The king Qi. The door. The door of a Chu. The door. The door heavily. The door. Xing Chu of Chu. Chu. He. Ling Xing fell, he, greetings, your highness. Xiao Jing hurriedly stood up and saluted. Your highness. Xiao Jing stood up and saluted. After the guests and the host were seated, the servants poured tea again. Chu Liuchen's eyes fell on Xiao Jing and he asked gently, what brings you here this time, Marquis Xing? As for the possibility of meeting Chu Liuchen, Xiao Jing had already guessed it just now. He smiled and asked with concern, I heard that Princess Chen suddenly felt unwell when I returned to the mansion. I was worried about her, so I came to ask what happened. How is she now? Thank you for your concern, Marquis Xing. She is fine. Chu Liuchen said with his beautiful eyes slightly narrowed. It wasn't easy to continue, so Xiao Jing didn't say anything else. Xiao Jing coughed uncomfortably. Mother is old, and her mental state isn't very good. Accidents happen in the mansion one after another, and she can't cope with them. The doctor just checked on her and said, she had a stroke just now. Old madam had a stroke? Why don't I ask some imperial physicians to go to Marquis Xing's mansion for a consultation? Chu Liuchen said lightly, rudely interrupting Xiao Jing's statement. Thank you for your kindness, Prince Chen. I don't need it now. She has been treated with acupuncture. She just needs to rest well. Xiao Jing shook his head uneasily. Since she is fine, what does Marquis Xing mean by coming here? Chu Liuchen said with a trace of coldness in his eyes, but he looked calmer. Xiao Jing's heart skipped a beat. He felt flustered for no reason. On the one hand, he came to see Xiao Wanru and to tell her what had happened in the mansion. It was not that someone in the mansion had done something to Xiao Wanru, but that Xiao Wanru had made old madam so angry that she almost had a stroke. On the other hand, of course, he wanted Prince Chen to warn Xiao Wanru. No matter what old madam had done, she was Xiao Wanru's biological grandmother. Xiao Wanru almost had a stroke in anger. If this matter was spread out, Xiao Wanru, as Princess Chen, would definitely be criticized, and even Chu Liuchen's reputation would be affected. From this point of view, it could be said that he had something on Prince Chen's mansion. I'm afraid that Princess Chen will be involved in the memorial because of this matter. Xiao Jing gritted his teeth, looked up at Chu Liuchen, and said with a serious face, no matter what mother has done, she is still the elder of Princess Chen. How can she make her biological grandmother so angry just because she is in a bad mood? When the imperial physician treated her, he said that if it was a little later, something serious would happen. Since it had come to this, Xiao Jing felt that he should be tough at this time. Even if Prince Chen had the chance to ascend to the throne of the crown prince, in Xiao Jing's opinion, it was just an illusion. How could anyone pass the throne to his nephew instead of his own son? Everything was just a show for others to see. Who could take it for real? Anyway, he didn't believe it, and he would never be optimistic about Prince Chen's mansion. Moreover, as long as Chu Liuchen was ambitious, he should not offend Marquis Xing's mansion. What was the use of a princess without the help of her maiden family? So what if Chu Liuchen cared about Xiao Wanru? Could he really give up Marquis Xing's mansion for her? For this reason, Xiao Jing felt that he should not panic. If Marquis Xing finds a witness, he can go to the emperor to complain. Chu Liuchen smiled slightly, picked up the teacup, and took a sip slowly. Then he raised his beautiful eyes, and his face suddenly became gloomy, with a bloodthirsty dark light in his eyes. The substantial bloodthirsty light made Xiao Jing panic. He opened his mouth and almost bit his tongue. Marquis Xing can enter the imperial palace through my mansion. He can complain to the emperor or the empress dowager. As for the imperial physician, I don't know if he is willing to testify for Marquis Xing. Chu Liuchen looked at Xiao Jing, and his words were more like a sharp sword, with a gloomy and cold expression on his face. Your Highness, what do you mean? It took Xiao Jing a long time to find his voice. What is Marquis Xing? Meaning, what is this king's meaning? If Marquis Xing is afraid that things will not go well, I can lend a few people to Marquis Xing. After all, Marquis Xing's mansion should also be lively. Chu Liuchen's eyes swept over Xiao Jing, as if there was a poisonous snake's tongue sliding across his face, making his hair stand on end. Your Highness, I just advised Princess Chen not to be naughty with my mother. My mother is old and a little confused. Xiao Jing was defeated and said with a hollow laugh. Would the imperial physician testify for him? Of course not. As for the words of other people in the mansion, it was the easiest to refute. Moreover, although Xiao Jing felt that it was impossible for Chu Luchen to testify, he did not dare to contradict him. Even if Chu Luchen was not good, no one dared to look down on him for so many years, and even several princes did not dare to provoke him. Prince Cheng had repeatedly told him not to really provoke Chu Luchen. When he entered the door just now, he looked like he was going to interrogate him, but now he immediately became confused. Xiao Jing was really flexible. The gloominess on Chu Liuchen's face disappeared, and he looked at Xiao Jing with a faint smile and raised his eyebrows. If there is nothing else, Marquis Xing, you can go back. My princess is not feeling well, and I am in a bad mood. This was a direct order for him to leave. Xiao Jing had to stand up and said, since Princess Chen is fine, I have to take care of my mother, so I will leave first. Marquis Xing, please. Chu Luchen said lazily and waved his hand. This kind of contemptuous attitude made Xiao Jing feel very aggrieved, but he had to bear it. At present, he still needed to make use of Xiao Wanru, so he could not become enemies with Xiao Wanru at this time. Moreover, Chu Liuchen's momentum was amazing. After saying goodbye to Chu Luchen politely with a hollow laugh, he left Prince Chen's mansion. The carriage did not go directly to Marquis Xing's mansion, but to the current residence of Yi and Yang, a house not very far away from Marquis Xing's mansion. After entering the house, he picked up the tea that Yi and Yang had just served and drank a few mouthfuls. Only then did he feel relieved. Everything was not going well, and he was in a bad mood. Marquis, what happened? Yi and Yang said softly and poured more tea for Xiao Jing. Xiao Jing took it and drank a few mouthfuls. Then he put it down heavily and asked straightforwardly, when will you go to see Princess Chen again? Even if I go to see her, I can't see Princess Chen. I don't know why she is not interested. Yi Nyang also frowned. She had thought that there was a 90% chance of success, but now there was no result, which really made her feel uneasy. Marquis, what do you think of asking Rui and Great Elder Princess for help? Since Princess Chen could not do it, Rui and Great Elder Princess was also a very good choice. No, Rui and Great Elder Princess must have received the message from Princess Chen. If Princess Chen suspects you, she will definitely suspect you. Xiao Jing directly rejected Yi and Yang's decision. But even if Rui and Great Elder Princess suspects me, she will still be interested in meeting me, right? Or I can meet the little heir because of this. Yi Nyang said meaningfully. Thinking that she was about to become the official madam of Marquis Xing, she was very excited. She wanted to eliminate any obstacles at present and wholeheartedly wanted to ascend to such a position. She was just a little servant girl at that time. Whether it was Infanta Qinghua or the Jiang family, they were all superior. She didn't expect that one day, she would be the final winner. How could she not be excited? Chapter 1144. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net, do you want to see Xiao Yuanhao? You want to see Xiao Yuanhao? Xiao Jing rolled his eyes and thought it was a good idea. Rui and Great Elder Princess and Xiao Wanru were not so gullible, but what about Xiao Yuanhao, who had been well protected? Compared with them, he was the easiest one to crack. Xiao Jing nodded and said after thinking for a while, you're right. We should go to Rui and Great Elder Princess's mansion to have a try, especially at this time when Princess Chen is not in good health. I heard that she is sick in the mansion and has no time to care about other things. Since he went to Rui and Great Elder Princess's mansion, Xiao Yuanhao had been a part of Marquis Xing's mansion. Usually, he would be accompanied by Rui and Great Elder Princess's trusted subordinates during the spring festival and would leave after a short visit. Xiao Jing didn't know his nephew well at the moment. He only remembered that he had been raised to be arrogant when he was young. It had only been 3 years. Even if he wanted to change, he should not have changed much. He was still arrogant in his bones. Such a character was the easiest to be cheated. Moreover, he was just a child. Marquis, go back to the mansion first. I will go to Rui and Great Elder Princess's mansion later. Yi Nyang said happily. The sooner the matter was solved, the closer she would be to the position of the official madam of the Marquis's mansion. This was something she never dared to think about before, or it was not that she didn't dare to think about it, but that she dared to think about it but did not dare to say it. Her long-cherished wish for many years was about to come true. No matter how calm she used to be, she couldn't help feeling a little dizzy at this time. She was a concubine, and not only a concubine, but also a chess piece in Xiao Jing's hands. But she was willing to be this chess piece. Otherwise, she would always be a servant girl and a servant. Now she had a chance to compete for the throne that she had been looking forward to for many years. Marquis would even ask the Jiang family to make way for her. For this reason, Yi Nyang felt that everything she had done for Xiao Jing over the years was worth it. She could endure, just for the final victory. Whether it was Commandery Princess Qinghua or the Jiang family, she was the woman who had the last laugh. Those noble women fell in front of her one by one, while she, a lowly woman, finally rose to the top. Just for this point, Yi Nyang was full of fighting spirit at the moment. You don't have to be too anxious, lest you arouse the suspicion of Rui and Great Elder Princess. When you arrive at Great Elder Princess's mansion, you have to be careful not to give yourself away. Xiao Jing glanced at Anyang coldly with cold eyes. Compared with the confident Anyang, Xiao Jing thought more. At the moment, the mansion was in a mess. He had planned to let Madame of Jiang die in Xiao Wanru's hands, but he failed to see Xiao Wanru. His heart was in a mess. Seeing the joy on Yi Nyang's face, he only felt annoyed. Inexplicably, another thought came into his mind. In fact, it was not necessary for Jiang Shi to die. If Yi Nyang died, it could also solve the current predicament. However, there was also a problem with doing so. Rubbing his forehead, Zhang Xian felt as if his head was swelling, and he didn't look too good. Marquis, are you not feeling well? Let me help you rub it. Receiving Xiao Jing's cold gaze, Anyang finally realized that she had gone too far. She panicked. She knew how ruthless Xiao Jing was. He could sacrifice anything for his power. Her expression immediately changed, and she said tenderly, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Standing behind Xiao Jing, she stretched out her hands and gently pressed both sides of his forehead. Xiao Jing closed his eyes and felt the technique that Yi Nyang made him satisfied. Yi Nyang's technique was very familiar. From time to time, she pressed on Xiao Jing's forehead to make him feel comfortable. The look on Xiao Jing's face softened and he moaned softly, and his breathing gradually became stable. Yi Nyang pinched his forehead for a long time. When her hands were sore, she gently put them down. Seeing that Xiao Jing had fallen asleep, she tiptoed back to the inner room, took out a blanket, and carefully covered Xiao Jing's body. Her movements were very light, but Xiao Jing still felt it. He suddenly opened his eyes and his cold eyes fell on Yi Nyang, as if there was a murderous intent in them. Marquis. Yi Nyang didn't dare to move and called out timidly. Xiao Jing finally remembered where he was. He looked up at the window and saw the sun shining in through the window. He had fallen asleep just now. He hadn't slept well these days. Things had happened one after another, which made him mentally and physically exhausted. I'll go back to the mansion first. Be careful and don't mess things up. Xiao Jing stood up and rubbed his head again. Yi Nyang's technique was really comfortable. It made him feel more comfortable than other women. One of the main reasons was that Yi Nyang's wrist strength was great, which was a level that other women could reach. Yes, Marquis, I know. Yin Yang said softly and respectfully. Xiao Jing was satisfied with Yin Yang like this. He didn't like Madame Jiang. The arrogant Madame Jiang had long regarded herself as his sister-in-law, but she had an ambiguous relationship with him. After marrying him, she looked at his elder brother with affection and affection. If it weren't for old Madame's forceful suppression and Madame Jiang gave birth to a pair of outstanding children, Xiao Jing would have long been unable to bear Madame Jiang. Xiao Wanru blinked and slowly opened her watery eyes. In front of her was a handsome and gentle face. Seeing her open her eyes, he smiled slightly and said, "You're awake." He reached out and half lifted her up. Xiao Wanru then saw clearly that Chu Luqian was sitting beside her bed. There was a table beside the bed with some booklets on it. It seemed that every time she needed him, Chu Luqian was always there. "I'm fine." With a smile on her face, she leaned into Chu Luqian's arms gently and said, "Old Madam was so angry with me that she had a stroke. I don't know if she's okay." She really didn't have the heart to care about old Madam at that time. "She's fine for a long time. The imperial physician happens to be in the mansion." Chu Luqian comforted her and reached out to touch her head. He said indifferently, "It doesn't matter even if something happens to her. She came out this time because you pleaded for her. If something happens to her in Marquis Xing's mansion, it must not be because of you, the granddaughter who pleaded for her. If Marquis Xing's mansion testifies against you, people will only say that they are unkind." He didn't say that she had lost her composure, nor did he care about the consequences of her anger. He just stated a fact to reassure her. Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes fluttered twice, and her nose was very sour, but she didn't cry. At that time, she hurried back to the mansion because she wanted to see Chu Luqian, just like a child who had been wronged outside and specially returned to the mansion to complain to her parents. But when she saw Chu Luqian, she fainted without saying a word. Now she wanted to say it again, but she felt it was meaningless. What happened in Marquis Xing's mansion was not a good thing. She had already guessed various possibilities, but now because of the third Madame's words, she was so disgusted that she wanted to vomit. Was her psychological quality poor, or did she subconsciously return to the mansion to find someone to rely on because she had found someone to rely on? Seeing Xiao Wanru quietly snuggling up to him, Chu Luqian reached out to hold her in his arms. Without asking her anything, he gently stroked her hair and said softly, "Do you need me to do anything? Do you need me to do anything?" "Not for the time being." Xiao Wanru shook her head peacefully. Her long eyelashes fell down like tired butterfly wings, leaving uneven shadows on her white and tender face. This sleep made her heart calm down. She had thought about all kinds of possibilities about the death of her father and mother, hadn't she? "When do you need me?" Chu Luqian didn't ask too much and just said softly. Xiao Wanru put her arms around the back of Chu Luqian's waist and said, "My mother seems to have died in an unknown way. She didn't die of depression as people said. Today, the third madam said that she wanted to separate from the Marquis's mansion, and what happened in those years will happen again." Her words were a little messy, just like her current mood. Chu Luqian lowered his head to look at her face. Seeing her pale face, he felt a pain in his heart. He exerted force in his arms and almost pressed her into his arms. He gently rubbed her ear with the corner of his lips, and his eyes were dark as if a violent storm was brewing. He said, "We can directly get rid of Marquis Xing's mansion. If he directly got rid of them, there wouldn't be so much trouble." Chu Luqian was more willing to protect the woman in his arms in this way, but he also knew that there were some things that Xiao Wanru didn't want him to intervene in, so he could only protect her in his own way. Just like what happened to him, it was the darkest thing in his heart. Although he knew that Xiao Wanru probably knew it in her heart, he didn't want to say more. The thing about Marquis Xing's mansion was also the thing that she was most unwilling to mention in her heart. In fact, they were the same kind of people. They were more willing to solve this kind of thing in their own way, and he only needed to be her backer and help her. From the first time they met, he knew that the girl in front of him looked weak, but she was tough. He gently kissed her snow-white earlobe. Looking at the tender and white earlobe blushing, he couldn't help showing a smile. The person in his arms was the person he longed for the most and the only woman he wanted to protect. Feeling Chu Liuchen's warm breath in her ear, Xiao Wanru's face and ears turned red. Her gloomy mood was less gloomy and became lively again in his intimate breath. Now she was not alone. She still had him. His behavior of protecting her regardless of anything made her feel sweet in her heart. There was a surge of warmth in her heart, which swallowed the gloominess in her heart. Xiao Jing came just now and said that he wanted to see you and go to the palace to complain. I asked him to go now. He can enter the palace directly through the side door of Prince Chen's mansion. Chu Liuchen's voice was soft and lazy. Xiao Wanru smiled. She could imagine that Xiao Jing was angry and hateful, but he couldn't get angry. Xiao Jing wanted to threaten Chu Liuchen with the fact that she made old madam so angry that she had a stroke. Since she dared to be angry at that time, she believed that the imperial physician didn't dare to say anything, and Chu Liuchen would stand by her side without saying anything. The look in her eyes changed slightly, and there was a hint of softness in her smile. Her heart was full of sweetness. He must be mad. I can see that he is very angry, but he is not mad. After that, he went to find his mistress, who seems to be much more valued than the Jiang family. Chu Liuchen's eyes flickered and he answered. Xiao Jing did think highly of this woman called Anyang. It seemed that he valued her more like a subordinate than a mistress. Xiao Wanru's heart suddenly skipped a beat. She suddenly widened her watery eyes and raised her head to look at Chu Liuchen in astonishment. Is it what I think? It should be what you think. Chu Liuchen said, and when he lowered his head, the light and shadow dimmed. Chapter 1145. According to the news from Marquis Xing's mansion, old madam fell ill as soon as she returned to the mansion, and Princess Chen also fell ill after picking her up. People felt that Marquis Xing's mansion had declined more and more. Those who had intended to marry Marquis Xing's mansion for the sake of Princess Chen hesitated again. The third branch of Marquis Xing's mansion was not close to the two children of the first branch. Princess Chen didn't stay in Marquis Xing's mansion for a few days. As for the little heir of Marquis Xing's mansion, he was raised in Rui and great elder princess's mansion, so his relationship with these cousins in the mansion should be as indifferent as water. For a moment, people who had some ideas held back and waited to see the change of the situation. However, many people turned their attention to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, which suddenly got into trouble recently. Commandery Prince Qing had been engaged before, and it was said that he had been engaged for a long time. The bride's background was not obvious, but Commandery Prince Qing did not want to abandon her. Even in the selection of concubines in the palace, he did not choose any of those noble concubines and said that he already had a legal wife. For this reason, people had a good impression of him and thought that Commandery Prince Qing was not an ungrateful person. After the Princess of Su state came to the capital city, people suddenly knew that Princess Su was going to marry Commandery Prince Qing. What about the fiancé that Commandery Prince Qing had been engaged to before? Many people felt that the rumor was not credible, but some people thought that since it was said, it must be true. Besides, this wasn't just a marriage, it was related to national affairs, so there were even more people who were concerned about it. Many people who still didn't understand the situation were staring at the residence where the two princesses of the Su kingdom were temporarily staying. Some people went to Qin Huayong to inquire about the news. Compared with Prince Chen and Commandery Prince Qing, Qin Huayong was the best place to inquire about the news. However, after they went there, they all shook their heads. Qin Huayong was also very tight-lipped and only said that he would obey the emperor's orders. Now, although people were talking about it, there was no official decree. Did this mean that everything was possible? Xiao Wanru did not expect that the Princess of Su state would come to her before the matter of Marquis Xing's mansion was solved. They were the two princesses of Su state, Princess Yutao and Princess Yuyan. Hearing that the two princesses came, Xiao Wanru thought for a while and asked someone to invite them in. After they were invited inside, she was a little surprised to find that not only the two princesses of Su state were here. This is Princess Chen. Infanta Yuan walked in the front and led the way for the two princesses. When she saw Xiao Wanru, she first stepped forward to bow to her, and then stepped back to the side. She pointed at Xiao Wanru and introduced her to the two princesses. "Greetings, Princess Chen." Princess Yutao looked Xiao Wanru up and down with a bit of pickiness in her eyes. Although she couldn't marry Chu Luchen, she felt that she was just destined to marry Chu Luchen. If they were destined to be together, Chu Luchen would definitely want to marry her. She had always been very proud of her appearance. However, when he saw Xiao Wanru at the moment, he couldn't help but feel suffocated. The woman in front of him, no, it should be more accurate to say that she was a young girl. Although she was dressed as a married woman, she still looked a little childish. Her delicate and beautiful facial features were not sharp, but she had the elegance and charm of a little girl. As her watery eyes moved, her skin was as white as snow, and her lips were delicate and charming. Just one glance at her made people stunned, and they almost suspected that such a woman was like a fairy falling from the ninth heaven. Princess Yutao had studied sinology and also memorized many poems describing the beauty of women in books. She originally thought that the names of those poems were too exaggerated. However, the Princess Chen in front of her made her feel that these poems were a little too simple. They could only describe a little bit, but the real beauty couldn't be described clearly. Isn't it said that the first beauty is Xiao Baolin in the palace? Is she more beautiful than Princess Chen? Princess Yutao said in surprise after reading. As soon as she entered the capital city, she sent someone to inquire about the things in the capital city. It was said that the most outstanding woman in the capital city was the first miss of Marquis Xing's mansion, and now Xiao Yenru, who had become Baolin's wife. It was precisely because of this saying that Princess Yutao was still full of confidence in Princess Chen. Xiao Baolin must be more beautiful, but Princess Chen is also extremely beautiful. Princess Yuan reacted quickly. After greeting with a smile, she said. A trace of jealousy flashed in her eyes. That day, she tried every means to seduce Chu Luchen, but Chu Luchen had been unmoved. In fact, she also wanted to come here to see Princess Chen. How could a woman who was not as beautiful as her sit firmly in the position of Princess Chen? At this moment, there was nothing but jealousy. Why could this woman be so beautiful and marry such an excellent husband as Prince Chen? It was said that the emperor also affirmed Prince Chen's status, while Chu Qing was nothing. Thinking of this, she became more and more aggrieved. She didn't want to marry Chu Qing at all. As long as it was not Chu Qing, she could actually be Prince Chen's concubine. Didn't her mother marry into the family as a concubine, and now even the empress had to retreat? It didn't matter whether she was the legal wife or a concubine when she married into the family. Princess Yuan thought that it would depend on her charm in the future. So what if she was so beautiful? The empress of the Su kingdom was also beautiful, but in the end, she was still surpassed by her mother. It was not enough to be beautiful, but also to be sensible. Moreover, she had the Su kingdom behind her. These were the few advantages. If she married into Prince Chen's mansion would be hers. Thinking of this, Princess Yuan's face softened and she smiled kindly. After they greeted each other, they sat down according to the host and the guest. Princess Chen, it's a little offensive to come here without permission, but only Prince Chen is getting married, so I come to visit Princess Chen first. Please forgive me for my presumptuousness. Princess Yutao put down the teacup in her hand and said with a smile. Although she was a little unwilling, it was impossible for her and Chu Luchen to be together, so she just laughed it off. She was the future empress of the Su kingdom, and she could only marry a noble young master of the Su kingdom. She and Prince Chen were not destined to be together, so she could only regard it as a beautiful encounter. Thinking about this, she could stabilize her position. Deep in her heart, she had to admit that Chu Luchen didn't like her at all. In fact, if he liked her, she might have another idea. But now, all she wanted was the throne of the Su kingdom, so it was best to cooperate with Chu Luchen. The two princesses heard that I have a good relationship with Princess Chen, so they specially asked someone to invite me here. Infanta Yuan and also explained with a smile. Had a good relationship with Infanta Yuan then? Xiao Wanru frowned. It should be Zhang Qilan. Actually, we also invited Prime Minister Zhang's daughter, but I heard that Miss Zhang is sick. Princess Yu Tao explained with a smile. Zhang Qilan was the future Princess Yu, and Infanta Yuan was the future Princess Zhou. Both of them would be on an equal footing with Zhang Qilan in the near future. Even because Prince Yu and Prince Zhou were better than each other, Zhang Qilan, if they saw him, they would still be suppressed. The two of them were indeed suitable candidates. Princess Yuan is a very good person. She sent someone to invite her, and she came immediately. Princess Yu Yan said, obviously dissatisfied with Zhang Qilan. The two princesses of the Su Kingdom arrived in the capital. The situation was not clear at the moment, so how could Prime Minister Zhang let his daughter get involved? As for Commandery Princess Yuan and Zhang Qilan, their situations were different. Princess Chen, has Miss Zhang been ill recently? Princess Yuan asked with a smile. I'm not in good health recently, so I'm not sure. Xiao Wanru shook her head. Didn't Miss Zhang come to see you? I heard that Miss Zhang and Princess Chen were close friends when they were in the boudoir. Infanta Yuan became curious, as if she didn't know that her words were meant to sow discord. She was not feeling well, but I didn't know. Xiao Wanru smiled faintly. I was rude. Princess Chen, in a few days, we want to invite some distinguished guests from the capital to our mansion. Can you help us to provide some lists? Princess Yu Tao said impatiently. She disliked this kind of words between women the most. Couldn't they be more straightforward? Why don't you ask Ruiping Great Elder Princess for this matter? Xiao Wanru looked at Infanta Yuan and suggested. I want to invite some young people. They are of the same age and can get familiar with each other. Princess Yu Yan explained, although Ruiping Great Elder Princess knows a little about young ladies, she is not as young as Princess Chen, so she is more knowledgeable. She wanted Prince Chen's mansion to take the lead. Xiao Wanru keenly sensed this, but she still smiled gently and refused lightly, I'm afraid I really can't help you. I have only been in the capital for 3 years, and I have spent most of the time in the Yuhui nunnery. I have little contact with the misses of aristocratic families in the capital, unlike Infanta Yuan, who is a talented and beautiful noble lady in the capital. Moreover, I am not in good health now. The two princesses of the Su Kingdom had just arrived in the capital, and many people were watching. Xiao Wanru didn't want to intervene at this time. The matter of Marquis Xing's mansion was what she wanted to solve most now. There might be other mysteries about the matter of the princess of the Su Kingdom. Moreover, she was not in good health. She had just recovered from her injury, but now she fell ill again. Infanta Yuan looked at Xiao Wanru's face and found that she did not look well. She showed some concern on her face and said, why did you suddenly fall ill again? I heard that you went to Marquis Xing's mansion to pick up old madam. What happened? Infanta Yuan didn't find out what exactly happened in Marquis Xing's mansion that day, but she vaguely heard that old madam had something to do with Xiao Wanru's illness. It's not a big deal, but you need to take good care of yourself and don't worry too much. Xiao Wanru said softly, and then turned her head to cover her mouth with a handkerchief and coughed a few times. Princess Yu Yan suddenly felt that although Princess Chen in front of her was as beautiful as a painting, she looked like a short-lived person. She couldn't help but despise her in her heart. In fact, she didn't need Xiao Wanru, but she just wanted to see Princess Chen out of curiosity. Chu Luchen repeatedly refused her for the sake of such a weak and useless girl in front of her. But the next moment, the smile on her face froze. She heard Princess Yu Tao ask, Princess Chen, can you please ask Commandery Prince Qing to come here? Since he came here, Commandery Prince Qing has not come here even once. Chapter 1146. Although it was not officially announced, well-informed people still knew that Princess Yu Yan was going to marry Chu Qing. The princess of the Su Kingdom had been in the capital city for a few days, but Chu Qing had not visited her for a day, which was a little unreasonable. Even our prince can't interfere in this kind of thing. Princess Yu Yan, do you know that Commandery Prince Qing has a fiancé? Xiao Wanru calmly changed the topic. Princess Yu Yan's face darkened. It was one thing for her to be unwilling to marry Chu Qing, but it was another thing for Chu Qing to be unwilling to marry her. It was like giving her a hard slap in the face, and it was a man she despised. However, she was quite scheming. She gritted her teeth, swallowed her anger, and said with a smile, "Ning Yuan Army General said the same thing before. He also said that this is a matter between the two countries, and there should be a proper way to settle her down. In the face of national interests, this kind of thing was too trivial." When her mother sent her here, she repeatedly told her about it and told her that no matter whether she really married Chu Qing or not, she should not fall out with that woman. There was a force behind that woman, and if she used it properly, it would be good for everyone. Princess Yuyan heard Consort Li's words and took it a little seriously, but she didn't care about it. What was her identity and that woman's identity? How could they compete with her? As for Qin Huayong's identity, Princess Yuyan had also inquired about it. Princess Chen in front of her had been raised by Ning Yuan Army General. She could only say that it was a coincidence, and she felt that it was a good coincidence. Xiao Wanru's face darkened, and she understood what Princess Yuyan meant. Although Qin Huayong had nothing to do with her now, he had raised her for so many years after all. Ning Yuan Army General said that it's better to ask Princess Chen to help us invite Commandery Prince Qing. If you can invite Commandery Prince Qing's former fiancé, that would be the best. Seeing Xiao Wanru remain silent, Princess Yuyan said with a smile and changed the topic. It was not that she had to ask Xiao Wanru to do it. She just didn't like Xiao Wanru's delicate little face. If Xiao Wanru was unwilling to do it, she insisted on letting her do it. The relationship between Ning Yuan Army General and Princess Chen was unusual. Since Princess has said so, I will let His Highness convey Princess's words. Xiao Wanru didn't want to intervene in this matter, but it didn't mean that she was afraid of trouble. Princess Yuyan forced her again and again. With a cold look in her eyes, she put down the teacup in her hand heavily and said coldly, "How about tomorrow?" The smile on Princess Yuyan's face froze. She had thought that Xiao Wanru would definitely make excuses after being embarrassed. Unexpectedly, Xiao Wanru not only agreed but also made the date so urgent. Princess Yutao curled her lips and looked at her younger sister mockingly. Although she was not good at fighting among the women in the inner courtyard, she knew that her younger sister was stupid. What good would it do her to offend Princess Chen? No matter who Yu Yan wanted to marry, she would have to live here in the future. He didn't say anything and continued to watch the show. She was not the only one who was watching the show. Infanta Yuan also raised her lips vaguely. She was mocking Xiao Wanru. It would be great if Xiao Wanru and Princess Yuyan fought against each other. Along the way, she mentioned Xiao Wanru from time to time, which made Princess Yuyan dislike Xiao Wanru very much. It was inevitable that Princess Yuyan would provoke Xiao Wanru. What surprised her was Xiao Wanru's attitude. She didn't expect that Xiao Wanru would confront Princess Yuyan head-on. But it had nothing to do with her. She just wanted to watch the show. Will Commandery Prince Qing definitely come tomorrow? Princess Yuyan felt that she had been humiliated. She looked at Princess Yutao and Infanta Yuan, who were sitting aside with smiles, and her smile stiffened. Since Princess has come to Prince Chen's mansion, our prince has to tell Commandery Prince Qing. I wonder if Princess Yuyan is free tomorrow. Xiao Wanru said with a soft smile. As for how Chu Luchen would tell Chu Qing, it was not within her consideration. What was certain was that Chu Luchen was not the kind of person who would talk nicely. Then let's do it tomorrow. I hope Princess Chen can keep her promise. Princess Yuyan became more and more embarrassed. In the case that her identity was unknown, she was still the princess of the Su Kingdom. What could she do? She just wanted to go shopping and enjoy the exotic scenery here. She couldn't say that she was trying to make friends with Chu Luiyue. She was very busy. Princess Yuyan, rest assured. Commandery Prince Qing will definitely come tomorrow. Xiao Wanru said meaningfully. Looking at Xiao Wanru, who was confident, Princess Yuyan was so angry that her face turned slightly pale. But she couldn't really get angry. Xiao Wanru had helped her solve a big problem. At this point, there seemed to be nothing more to say. Princess Yuyan, who felt quite aggrieved, got up and said goodbye. Princess Yutao and Infanta Yuan and also got up. The three of them came together, so they naturally went out together. Xiao Wanru personally saw them off to the gate of the mansion. Seeing Princess Yutao get in a carriage alone, Princess Yuyan and Infanta Yuan and get in another carriage, and the carriage behind them belonged to Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion, Xiao Wanru raised the corners of her mouth silently. Princess Chen. The curtain of the carriage in front was lifted, revealing Princess Yutao's face. If we invite the young misses and madams in the capital city to enjoy the flowers in a few days, I hope Princess Chen can also come to enjoy the flowers. Princess Yutao sincerely invited Princess Chen. She had made an alliance with Chu Luchen, but it was quite inappropriate for them to meet each other because they were men and women. Prince Chen said that if she had any problems, she could turn to Princess Chen. At this time, of course, she had to win over Princess Chen. She was also very satisfied with Princess Chen's behavior just now, which could be seen from the fact that her arrogant sister had suffered such a big loss. Princess Yutao appreciated Xiao Wanru very much, so she showed her kindness to her. Thank you, Princess Yutao. If I'm still in good health, I will certainly bother you. Xiao Wanru bowed sideways with a smile and looked up at the curtain of another carriage. The curtain fell heavily, and her eyes were shining. Princess Yuyan was very unruly, which was actually very good. Infanta Yuan was obviously stirring up trouble inside, but an unruly princess with ulterior motives was not completely useless inside. It was said that the relationship between Princess Yuyan and Chu Qing was not simple. In fact, this Princess Yuyan was not as useless as she looked. If Infanta Yuan really treated her as a chess piece, she was afraid that she would suffer a big loss. The carriages left one after another. In the carriage behind, Infanta Yuan looked at Princess Yuyan, who was so angry that her face turned pale, and comforted her softly, Princess Yuyan, don't be angry. Princess Chen is always like this. With such a temper, will Prince Chen still marry her? I heard that she is just an orphan girl. I really thought that she would be of great help to Prince Chen. Princess Yuyan said angrily and said incoherently. Princess, please be careful with your words. Infanta Yuan hurriedly said carefully and reached out to point outside the window, in case someone outside hears it. Even if someone hears it, so what? Princess Yuyan said angrily. She unconsciously lowered her voice, isn't it just that her looks are satisfactory? Are there not a lot of women who look satisfactory? If Prince Chen likes this kind of women, our Su country can send 8 or 10 of them here. Infanta Yuan secretly curled her lips and didn't take Princess Yuyan's words seriously. She was also jealous of Xiao Wanru's appearance. Xiao Wanru was exceedingly beautiful, and there were few women in the world who looked like her. Even if there were similar looks, her temperament was unique. She was elegant with charm, and her lips were thick and bright, which made people feel that she was elegant. Infanta Yuan thought that she had seen many women, but she had never seen one like Xiao Wanru. Even though Xiao Yanru used to be famous in the capital city, she couldn't compare with Xiao Wanru's stunning appearance. Will Commandery Prince Qing really come tomorrow? Infanta Yuan carefully deviated from the topic. If he doesn't come, I will go to Prince Chen's mansion and ask Princess Chen why she promised me so shamelessly. What does she mean? Are you looking down on our Su country, or are you looking down on our 2 princesses? Princess Yuyan said angrily and blushed with anger. She had intended to embarrass Xiao Wanru, but in the end, she was the one who was embarrassed. Whether she looked down on the Su country or the princesses of the Su country, it meant the same thing. Even if Xiao Wanru was Princess Chen, so what? She would be a sinner of the country if she caused a dispute between the 2 countries. Infanta Yuan was very satisfied with the result. She talked with Princess Yuyan for a while and mentioned Xiao Wanru from time to time with subtle provocation in her words. Princess Yuyan didn't like Xiao Wanru in the first place, and now she disliked Xiao Wanru even more. She only felt that Xiao Wanru was a stepping stone for her. Especially when she heard Infanta Yuan and say that Chu Luiyue seemed to treat Xiao Wanru differently, her face immediately changed. You said that Prince Yu once wanted to marry her. There is such a rumor. It was said by a servant of the Empress. Infanta Yuan and said in an increasingly low voice, for fear that others would hear it when passing by the carriage. I heard it when I went to visit the Empress last time. Infanta Yuan and was going to marry Chu Liuzhou, the only son of the Empress. As his daughter-in-law, she was certainly different from other daughters-in-law, so she was not surprised to hear some secrets. Bitch, what a bitch. Princess Yuyan was so angry that her face turned pale. Chu Luqian was the person she had been thinking about before, and she had not forgotten him until now. Chu Luiyue was the person she was thinking about next. She was about to hook up with Chu Luiyue, but she didn't expect that both of them were related to Xiao Wanru. Princess Yuyan immediately regarded Xiao Wanru as her mortal enemy. It was not that she didn't think that Chu Luiyue had a woman in his heart, but she just thought about it. She, who thought that she was prettier than others, felt that even Princess Yutao had no advantage in front of her. After all, she was more feminine than Yutao. Her mother said that men liked women's gentleness the most. However, Xiao Wanru was different. She envied Xiao Wanru's appearance from the bottom of her heart, but what made her envious was Xiao Wanru's gentle temperament, which was cold with gentleness and cold. It was originally a discordant feeling, but when it came to Xiao Wanru, it was so harmonious. Princess Yuyan had a sense of crisis. She gritted her teeth and said, I will teach her a lesson. Chapter 1147. Qian. The latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess was updated as soon as possible. Princess Yuyan's so-called beauty was naturally realized by Chu Qing, who would come over tomorrow. She believed that as long as she saw Chu Qing, she would definitely ask him to help her and even use him to fight back against Xiao Wanru. One of them had the intention, while the other had the intention. The more they talked in the carriage, the more congenial they became. After this exchange, they became as close as sisters. When they arrived at the residence, Princess Yutao jumped out of the carriage first. She looked at the two women behind her who were supported to get out of the carriage with a sneer in her eyes. Without waiting for them, she just smiled at Infanta Yuan and went straight to the main room. Infanta Yuan was obviously an enemy of Prince Chen's mansion. The future Princess Shou. Princess Yutao looked down on her because she was on the same side as Princess Yuyan. Compared with Infanta Yuan, she felt that the future Princess Yu was more worth looking forward to. Princess Yuyan, I have something to do, so I'll go back first. Infanta Yuan said with a smile. She had achieved her purpose of coming here today and established a good relationship with Princess Yuyan. At this time, it was not appropriate for her to get too close to the two princesses of the Su Kingdom. It was enough to accompany them to Prince Chen's mansion. Infanta Yuan was valued by the Empress because of her own reasons. She knew that this was the best time to go back. Stay for a while. I happen to have something to ask you. Princess Yuyan took Infanta Yuan's hand intimately and didn't intend to let her go back like this. It was rare for her to find a person who was familiar with the capital city and didn't get along with Xiao Wanru. She might even know about Princess Chen and Prince Yu. She wanted to inquire more about it. It had been too short along the way, so there were still many things she hadn't found out. Princess, I'm really sorry. When I came here just now, my grandma told me to go back early. Next time I come, I must report to my grandma and stay a little longer. Infanta Yuan said with an embarrassed look. Are you really going to leave? Don't you want to stay a little longer? Shall I visit Ruiping Great Elder Princess? Princess Yuyan looked at Infanta Yuan expectantly and said reluctantly. Infanta Yuan's heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly waved her hand and said, Grandma is not well. I'm afraid it's not convenient for me to receive you at this time. Next time. Her grandmother had told her not to bring the princesses of the Su Kingdom back to the mansion. She didn't want to see the two princesses of the Su Kingdom at this time. The situation was unclear, so she had to wait and see. All right then. Princess Yu Yan put down her hand with a face full of pity. Princess Yu Yan, I'll go back first. I'll come see you tomorrow, alright? Princess Yuan suggested with a smile. She had something to say to Princess Yu Yan today, but now was not the best time. Tomorrow, after Commandery Prince Qing came to visit Princess Yu Yan, she would follow him and ask if there was any opportunity she could take advantage of. Of course, it didn't matter if Chu Qing didn't come. Some things could be understood positively and vice versa, right? Princess Yuan and Princess Yu Yan reluctantly parted. Princess Yuan boarded her carriage and left. Princess Yu Yan watched her leave. Only when the carriage was out of sight did the smile on Princess Yu Yan's face turn cold. With a cold snort, she turned around and walked back inside. Yuan was a very good ally. She only hoped that this ally would not think of obtaining too many benefits from her. Chu Qing was invited to Prince Chen's mansion. He waited in a flower hall of Prince Chen's mansion, looked at the sky outside, and calculated the time. It had been almost 2 hours. The tea had been refilled several times, but the answer he got was always to wait. He was also a commandery prince of a country, and he also had something to do. Why did he keep waiting? They were all the sons of the former emperor, and no one was more noble than the other. What did Chu Luchen mean? After finishing the 3rd cup of tea, Chu Qing put down his hand heavily. He couldn't help standing up with a cold face. Chu Luchen asked him to come over, but he kept waiting. Commandery Prince Qing, shall I refill your tea for you? The little eunuch beside him hurriedly stepped forward and said in a shrill voice. No need. Chu Qing said angrily, turned around and strode out. What's wrong? Is there anything else, Commandery Prince Qing? The door was pushed open, and Chu Luchen walked in slowly. He was wearing a loose light white brocade robe casually. The belt of his robe was not tied up, and there was a faint wind in the forest. The corners of his lips on his handsome face were slightly raised, but it inexplicably made people feel cold. Chu Qing's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly stopped. Are you leaving? Chu Luchen came in with a book in his hand. He shook the book in his hand and asked casually. It's good to go back. It saves me a lot of trouble. Chu Qing's heart skipped a beat. He clenched his hands hard, but a smile appeared on his face. Seeing Chu Luchen go inside and sit down, he turned around and said, I thought you had something to do, so I wanted to leave first. Since you are here, I naturally have nothing to do here. He sat down on the chair beside him with a smile, saluted with his hands, and said, I wonder why you called me here. Chu Liuchen's current status was not the same as before. Chu Qing did not dare to provoke Chu Luchen in the past, and now he did not dare to do so. Although he was full of anger, he had to show a gentle smile on his face. It's nothing important. I just want to talk to you about Princess Yu Yan. Chu Luchen looked up at Chu Qing and did not care about Chu Qing's quiet attempt to get closer to him. About Princess Yu Yan? What's the matter? Chu Qing's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly calmed down and asked. Princess Yu Yan asked you when you will go to the imperial palace to ask for an imperial edict to marry her. As for the previous one, although Princess Yu Yan did not say it clearly, you can't keep him. Chu Luchen said slowly, I'm afraid that Princess Yu Yan of the Su Kingdom will not agree if Commandery Prince Qing wants to enjoy the happiness of having 2 wives. Chu Qing's eyes flashed with a trace of hatred for Chu Liuchen's sarcasm, and the blue veins on his hands almost stood out. He really felt that he had been disgraced by Princess Yu Yan. Even if he married her in the end, he could not do anything to Mo Chui. This matter had been explained at the beginning, but she still refused to let it go. I've already said this when I was in the Su Kingdom. If Princess Yu Yan is not willing to marry me, it's okay. Chu Qing suppressed the rising anger in his heart and said. That was before, and now is now. Don't you understand that times have changed, Commandery Prince Qing? Since Princess Yu Yan of the Su Kingdom likes you, we have to show our sincerity. We can't ruin the relationship between the 2 countries because of a woman. My imperial uncle still wants to get some news from the Su Kingdom. Chu Luchen rolled his eyes, revealing a trace of perceptible sarcasm. He leaned back lazily and comfortably, and said, "Originally, this kind of thing is not my business. I am just a messenger, and I only need to bring Princess Yuyan to the capital city. Next, it is your own business with Princess Yuyan. But Princess Yuyan came to my mansion specially to say this, and I can't do anything about it. If I don't care about it, it will seem that our country is rude." Of course, Chu Luchen saw Chu Qing's anger, and his handsome face looked gloomy. He hated it most when someone disturbed Xiao Wanru, let alone someone who wanted to take advantage of Xiao Wanru. It was Princess Yuyan who took the initiative to find Chu Luchen. Chu Qing gritted his teeth angrily. He thought Princess Yuyan was smart before, but now she made such a big trouble for him. Was Chu Luchen an easy person to find? He didn't dare to provoke him in daily life, but now Princess Yuyan provoked him. "Commandery Prince Qing, you'd better deal with that woman. For the peace of the two countries," Chu Luchen said casually. He looked at Chu Qing's stiff face and saw the hidden anger that Chu Qing carefully hid. "Brother, I'm afraid it's not appropriate." Chu Qing exhaled hard to suppress the anger that was about to rush out of his heart. The anger in his chest was almost burning. Princess Yuyan actually gave Chu Luchen such an above-board reason to reach out to Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. What's wrong with it? She's just the daughter of a minor official. I heard that you haven't met her before. Didn't you say that you have been living in the Yuhui nunnery and have never seen outsiders? Chu Luchen asked lightly. Of course, it meant that the two of them probably hadn't met each other before. Even if they had met each other before, they had only met secretly once or twice. There was not much affection between them, so there was nothing to be reluctant about. Could Chu Qing say that he had known Mo Qiuyi for a long time? Could he say that he had been in touch with Mo Qiuyi for a long time? Well, my mother said that I owe her a favor. Chu Qing had to explain. A favor? Chu Yuchen's face changed. He sat up a little straighter and his eyes fell on Chu Qing's face coldly. What do you mean, Commandery Prince Qing? Do you mean that the old princess of Commandery Prince Qing had secretly left the Yuhui nunnery before? Or do you mean that this woman's elders had done something for the old princess of Commandery Prince Qing when she was in the imperial palace? Brother, you must be joking. How could such a thing happen? Chu Qing said with a dry smile. He was very uncomfortable and secretly vigilant. Chu Luchen was not a person to be trifled with. He was originally temperamental, so he couldn't let him have something on him at this time. He only hated that Princess Yuyan was not a good person. How could she make such a thing happen? When they were in the Su country, she repeatedly said that she would support him, but it turned out that she supported him in this way. Since she didn't do it, how could she owe her a favor? How could the old princess of Commandery Prince Qing be so obsessed with her and worship a woman from a small official's mansion like a Buddha? Chu Luchen smiled again. He flicked his slender fingers on the table and glanced at Chu Qing with an inexplicable meaning. Then his expression softened again. Now that things have come to this point, no matter what kind of favor this woman has done for the old princess of your mansion, you should give up. Only when you have a country can you have a home. If you can't do it yourself, I can help you. No, no need. Chu Qing suddenly stood up and waved his hands. If Chu Luchen really did this, it would be a mess. If Chu Luchen took action, there would definitely be a storm of blood, and he might also expose himself. If the Mo clan staked everything on one throw, he was afraid that even he would be destroyed. To a certain extent, he could make use of the Mo clan, but he couldn't destroy them. Really? Chu Luchen said playfully. Really? Chu Qing shook his head decisively again, with cold sweat on his back. He would never let Chu Luchen intervene in this matter. Chapter 1148. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign small/say net wonderful pop-up window free reading. Thank you, Brother Wang, for telling me about this. I still have some matters to attend to here, so I'll take my leave first. Rest assured, Brother Wang, I'll definitely settle this matter. I won't trouble Brother Wang, and I won't provoke a war between the two countries. Chu Qing said all the words in his mind in one breath. After that, he bowed to Chu Luchen heavily and left. If this king intervenes, this matter can also be handled very quickly. Chu Liuchen's interest seemed to be aroused, and he asked with great interest, just a little girl. Chu Qing shook his head decisively. It's not just about a woman. It's also about trust. Faith? Why does Commandery Prince Qing need so much trust? The lazy voice could easily make people feel a little tired, but Chu Qing's forehead broke into a cold sweat when he heard it. Of course, an ordinary prince didn't need too much trust, but what if he had other intentions, or if his intentions weren't small? Brother Wang, you must be joking. I just feel that one cannot stand without trust. Chu Qing became more and more careful. Facing Chu Luchen, who was moody, Chu Qing had been worried that other accidents would happen. Since that's the case, you can go back first. Princess Yuyan's matter is also a matter between the two countries. Chu Luchen waved his hand and said lightly. Yes, I'll take my leave then. Chu Qing nodded repeatedly. This time, Chu Luchen didn't make things difficult for him. He waved his hand to let him leave and lowered his head to read the book in his hand. Chu Qing retreated gloomily. When he reached the door, he breathed a sigh of relief and looked back at Chu Liuchen's reaction secretly. Chu Luchen should not find anything unusual. Thinking about how she almost exposed herself just now, her face turned green and red. What is Yu Yan trying to do? What good would it do her if she really angered him? What a brainless girl. She thought this was her country and she could do whatever she wanted. Let's go to the two princesses' residences. Chu Qing said immediately after they got on the carriage. Your Highness, it's getting late. The carriage driver reminded him. Let's go. Chu Qing said with a gloomy face. He didn't want to wait any longer. The carriage made a turn and headed towards the house where the two princesses were staying. In the living room, Xiao Wanru came out from the back of the flower hall and sat down on the other side of Chu Luchen with a smile. Xiao Xuanzi hurriedly served Xiao Wanru a cup of fragrant tea. Commandery Prince Qing seems to be in love with her. Xiao Wanru said with a smile. She had been hiding behind it just now and heard it clearly. It looked like a wall behind it, but in fact, people could sit behind it. Affectionate and loyal. Chu Luchen sneered and said, Zhuozhua, do you think so? No. Xiao Wanru shook her head. She just felt strange. Were Chu Qing and Mo Qiui so close? When Chu Luchen took her out at night, he saw Chu Qing going to Mo Qiui's courtyard. There were many secrets in the Yuhui nunnery, and what happened to Chu Qing was one of them. After thinking for a while, she said, Your Highness, who do you think he will marry? Chu Qing's current situation was quite interesting. It seemed that both of them were going to marry him, but Princess Yuyan was not a peaceful person. There was already Xiao Jia, in Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. Was Mo Qiui and Princess Yuyan going to marry each other? If so, Commandery Prince Qing's mansion would be really lively. No matter who he wants to marry, there are some things that he can't decide on. Chu Luchen stood up lazily and walked to Xiao Wanru, who was dressed in a plain white dress. In front of Xiao Wanru, who was dressed in a plain white dress, he reached out to hold her soft hand and said with an enchanting smile in his eyes, he thinks that everything is under his control, but he only grasps a small part of it. Let's go. Don't worry about this kind of thing. Walk with me. Haven't we walked past it just now? Do we still have to walk? Xiao Wanru said helplessly. When Chu Qing came over, the two of them were strolling in the garden. They came over when they were tired. One of them entered the flower hall from the front door, and the other just came in from the back. At that time, Chu Qing's attention was all on Chu Luchen, so he didn't notice the sound of Xiao Wanru entering the door. Moreover, Xiao Wanru was very careful, for fear that she would make a sound and disturb Chu Qing. Let's go and have a look. If you like those flowers, I'll ask someone to plant some more on the edge of the purple bamboo forest. There are bamboos and flowers. It's a wild scene. Isn't it beautiful? Chu Luchen pulled Xiao Wanru out of the flower hall, looked down at her and said with a smile. The wind blew, and their clothes were tangled and their skirts fluttered. They held hands and went to enjoy the flowers together. In Princess Yuyan's mansion, Chu Qing just got out of the carriage and snorted coldly at Princess Yuyan, who came to welcome him, with a livid face. In fact, Princess Yuyan didn't want to come to pick him up. She was the princess of a country, so why should she welcome a prince? However, thinking of what her mother said to her when Qing came over and her current situation, she thought that she had to build a good relationship with Chu Qing. In order to show her friendliness, she specially came out to welcome him. She felt very honored that Chu Qing would come at this time. She had just sent out the news that Chu Qing would come over. It was supposed to be tomorrow, but she didn't expect that Chu Qing would come so soon. It was going to be dark soon, and some servants had already carried lanterns to light the fire. However, she didn't expect that Chu Qing ignored her as soon as he got out of the carriage and just snorted coldly. Princess Yuyan immediately lost her temper. He was really shameless. With gloomy faces, they walked into the hall one after another. Princess Yutao was also in the hall. Seeing the two of them come in unhappily, she smiled. It seemed that there would be a good show to watch again. She had thought that it would be tomorrow, but she didn't expect that she could watch it again today. Princess Yutao sat on the wide chair and didn't intend to go out. She just wanted to watch the show quietly. Greetings, Princess Yutao. When Chu Qing saw Princess Yutao, he stepped forward and bowed. Princess Yutao waved her hand and said indifferently, "You're welcome." Did Commandery Prince Qing come to see my sister at this time? Consort Li can rest assured now. Even in the Eastern Song Kingdom, Commandery Prince Qing still regards you as the most important person in his heart. Her words made Princess Yuyan's expression look a bit better. She snorted and sat down on the chair next to Princess Yutao. She raised her eyebrows in disapproval and glanced at Princess Yuyan with a bit of pride. The three of them sat down. Chu Qing suppressed his anger, and his expression softened a little. He smiled at Princess Yutao and said, "I have something to discuss with Princess Yuyan. Is that okay?" Princess Yutao was Princess Yuyan's older sister, and she was also the bridal envoy. "Please go ahead, Commandery Prince Qing. I still have something to do, so I can't accompany you." Princess Yutao stood up sensibly and spoke with some regret. She was actually more willing to stay and watch the show. However, since Chu Qing had suggested it, it was inconvenient for her to stay. Looking at Chu Qing's unnatural smile, she smiled and left with her people. "If you have something to say, Commandery Prince Qing, just say it." Princess Yuyan glanced at Princess Yutao's back disapprovingly, raised her head slightly, and asked. She was the one who had called Commandery Prince Qing here, but she just said that at that time to make things difficult for Xiao Wanru. "Princess Yuyan, please conduct yourself with dignity. This king doesn't care what you're thinking right now, but please remember that you're currently in the kingdom of Dongcang, not your Su kingdom. Everything has to be done according to the rules of the kingdom of Dongcang. If you break the rules, Princess Yuyan won't be able to recover either." Chu Qing came with anger. As soon as Princess Yutao left, he couldn't help but raise his eyes and stare at Princess Yuyan angrily. Princess Yuyan didn't expect that Chu Qing would get angry as soon as he came. After being stunned for a moment, she flew into a rage and slapped the table hard, almost knocking over the teacup on the table. "Chu Qing, what do you mean?" "What do I mean? Doesn't Princess Yuyan know? It has nothing to do with Princess Yuyan how to arrange my people. Even if Princess Yuyan marries into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion, Qiu Yi will still be Consort Ping, whose status is not lower than that of Commandery Prince Qing's mansion." Chu Qing was as angry as he had been in Prince Chen's mansion before. Seeing that Princess Yuyan still pretended to know nothing, the anger in his heart rushed up. He slapped the table hard, and the teacup on the table was immediately knocked over. You, Chu Qing, you, don't think that I want to marry a poor man like you. Why don't you look in the mirror? If it weren't for you, I. Princess Yu Yan was so angry that her face changed dramatically. She stood up, pointed at Chu Qing and scolded him. Seeing that the situation was not good, a nanny beside her hurriedly took 2 steps forward, pulled her back, and said in a low voice, "Princess, please be careful with your words." This nanny was a confidant sent by Consort Li. Seeing this nanny, Princess Yu Yan immediately came to her senses and hurriedly stopped talking, but her face was still livid with anger. She looked at Chu Qing's gloomy face and said, "Commandery Prince Qing, what do you mean? You came in and blamed me without saying a word. What did I do wrong? Why did Commandery Prince Qing come here overnight without stopping for a moment?" The implied meaning in Princess Yu Yan's words also frightened Chu Qing. His face was very pale, but he finally sobered up and said, "Did you go to Prince Chen's mansion and ask him to invite me here? So what? What do you mean by not showing up these days?" Princess Yu Yan's heart skipped a beat, but she refused to admit defeat and asked back. "Prince Chen doesn't need to make decisions about my affairs. Are you afraid that I don't have enough things to do and that Prince Chen doesn't have enough hands?" Chu Qing calmed down and reprimanded her sternly. He looked around the hall and found that it was either his confidant or Princess Yu Yan's confidant. He lowered his voice and said, "Do you want both of us to get into trouble?" After saying that, he looked at Princess Yu Yan coldly. At the moment, the 2 of them were like grasshoppers on a string. They couldn't escape, and neither could they escape. Princess Yu Yan choked for a moment. Her confidant nanny helped her sit down, made tea for them again, and then stood outside the door to guard them. Just now, she saw Princess Yu Tao's guards pass by the door. Princess Yu Yan was so careless. There was not even a person guarding the door, but she dared to say such words. Thinking of the meaning of Princess Yu Yan's words just now, the nanny's back was soaked in cold sweat. How could he say such life-threatening words? She couldn't help but worry about this time she followed Princess Yu Yan to the kingdom of Dongsang, but she hoped that the 2 inside could talk well and not cause any other trouble.